Hey guys, tonight we step barefoot into the chill of an ancient savanna, lit only by the pale breath of a rising ice age moon. Your breath steams in the air as the wind slides like a cold blade across the tall silver grass. Somewhere beyond the termite mounds, a distant roar. Not a roar exactly, more like the rasp of wood tearing echoes over the plain. That's your first hint that tonight's guest star has claws sharp enough to carve into stone. You probably won't survive this if you wander too far alone, so, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, while you're at it, drop your location and your local time down below. I love seeing where and when you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Asterisk, the night air smells of wet clay and bruised grass. You crouch low near a knuckled ridge of basalt rock, fingers pressed into the cool dirt as you peer toward the glow of your clan's distant fire. The moon reflects off the surface of a nearby water, broken by the lazy ripple of some unseen creature stirring beneath dot all around you. The savanna rolls on like a silver-green ocean, punctuated by scattered thorn trees whose shadows look like black spindly claws scratching the earth. 2 million years ago, this land was wilder than any nature documentary could capture. Hyenas, with jaws like bolt cutters, crocodiles hiding in seasonal pools, giant baboons eyeing the night for scraps. But one creature stood apart, a giant anteater, so huge it could tip a termite. Mound as easily as you'd flip a pancake, your clan has felt its presence for weeks. Scratched trees, gutted mounds of clay, carcasses of smaller beasts, left slashed and broken. There's an open debate around the campfire though. Debate is generous when most of it is pantomime growls and frantic hand gestures about whether the creature kills out of hunger or out of sheer irritability. Historians still argue whether the giant anteaters of that era were purely insectivorous or opportunistically omnivorous. Tonight, you're convinced it wouldn't mind adding a stray hominin to the menu. You trudge back toward the flickering firelight, your bare feet numb against the pebble-studded path. Every few steps you glance over your shoulder, half expecting to see the silhouette of that monster gliding through the grass behind you. Instead, all you see are fireflies stitching erratic golden arcs above the reeds. Near the fire, the rest of your small clan, about 24 souls, counting elders, children, and that one uncle who insists on cracking rocks together after dark, huddles close for warmth. Sparks drift upward, joining the stars. Someone tends a pile of roasted tubers. The sweet, smoky scent mingles with the sharp odor of singed hair where a torch caught somebody's arm fringe earlier. You hear a few muffled laughs at that memory. Proof that humor existed long before Netflix specials. The elders are worried. Last night, the anteater raided a neighboring band's termite hill, scattering their sleeping children and flattening to reed shelters in its path. The scars gouged into the mud still gleam wet under the moonlight. There's talk of migrating east toward the rift's shadowed cliffs, but that means losing access to the lake's reliable reeds and fish. As you sit gnawing on a slightly charred root, your mind drifts to the day's scouting. The claw marks on a fallen log were deeper than your thumb. Mainstream paleontology tells us the giant anteater of this period likely had forelimb claws up to 20 centimeters long, dagger-like keratin blades capable of ripping open anthills or defending against saber-toothed cats. A quirky tidbit you remember from an elder's tale. Some swear the creature stands upright like a man when provoked, balancing on its tail as if the earth itself props it up. The fire pops loudly, startling a baby who squeals and burrows into its mother's furs. The clan's lead hunter raises a soot-blackened finger to the stars, tracing a crooked line that points toward a cluster of distant acacias. He grunts. Your language is still mostly gesture and grunt, but you know what he means. That's where the beast's trail vanishes into moon-drenched grass. You realize this hunt won't be easy. The creature is not only strong, but oddly quiet for its size, with thick fur that muffles sound as it moves. Its eyesight might be poor, but the long snout and flickering tongue sense insects deep underground, and perhaps even sense your scent if the wind shifts wrong. A soft breeze brings the smell of damp earth mixed with something musky, faint, yet unsettling. You remember the elders' warning that the anteater sometimes marks its territory by clawing up soil and smearing it with saliva. A prehistoric version of a keep-out sign. Tonight, no one dares sleep deeply. A few young men keep embers alive on their spear tips, making makeshift torches that sputter against the breeze. An elder hums a low, drowsy melody meant to calm the children. It almost works on you too, until another distant thump carries from the grasslands, somewhere out there, under the moon's pale eye. The most dangerous anteater your species has ever known claws through another mound, completely unaware that a band of frightened yet determined hominins is about to change the rules of survival. The next night starts earlier than you expect, long before the last blush of sunset has drained from the horizon. A restless quiet grips the savanna, that strange hush when even the hyenas stop their mocking chatter. The thorn trees sway like nervous dancers beneath a velvet sky streaked with tangerine clouds. You crouch at the edge of a half-collapsed termite mound, fingers brushing the powdery clay as if hoping the dirt itself will whisper what it saw. The claw marks here are unmistakable. 3 deep grooves gouged in parallel, each as wide as your thumb, curving like scythes. A torn patch of coarse gray fur lies snagged on a splintered root proof. The beast was here just hours ago. As the last sunlight fades, you catch movement near a ridge the spear throws away. At first you think it's a shadow stretching oddly across the slope, but then the shape heaves upward. The giant anteater emerges from behind a cluster of boulders, its long snout sweeping side to side like a probing spear. The creature's back arches high, nearly at your shoulder height even on all fours, and its shaggy tail drags behind like a giant broom sweeping the earth. It moves with deceptive slowness, each step deliberate, claws hooking the ground, yet you sense the power stored in those forelimbs. The setting sun paints the fur in copper and ash, turning the beast into a walking ember. Against the savanna's green-gray sea, you remember what an elder said. It doesn't roar, it rasps. Sure enough, when the anteater digs into a nearby mound, the sound that carries to you is the coarse rip of fibers being torn apart, a harsh, rhythmic rasp that sends a chill down your spine. Your heart pounds as you stay low, studying every detail. The narrow head that tapers to a wet nose, the tiny eyes that glitter briefly in the half-light, the slow wave of its enormous tail that nearly hides the hind legs. Modern researchers believe the giant anteaters of that epoch weighed nearly 200 kilograms, about twice as heavy as a grown man of your clan could rear up to slash with. Claws designed to shred termite mounds or defend against saber-toothed cats. You're fascinated despite the fear. The beast's tongue lashes in and out at lightning speed, fishing for termites as if the insects were helpless noodles. It feeds without pause, oblivious to the trembling hominin just beyond the thorn scrub. Your best friend, well, as much as anyone can be called a best friend in a world where you share half your meals with hyena scrolls up beside you, carrying a sharpened stick. He points toward the creature's shoulder hump, and then at his own eyes, gesturing that it doesn't see well. You nod, relieved to confirm a weakness. Poor eyesight. A sudden gust shifts the breeze, carrying your scent toward the anteater. The creature stops feeding mid. Its head tilts slightly, ears twitching. You freeze, barely breathing. The anteater sniffs the air, gives a soft chuff, and resumes digging. The relief that floods you is so intense you nearly laugh quietly, so as not to tempt fate. By the time darkness fully wraps the land, you've witnessed enough to understand why your clan fears this animal. It is not a mindless insect. It is a muscular, territorial survivor of a harsher age. Back at camp, You and your friend reenact the scene for the others' bent backs. Sweeping arms for claws, a comically stuck-out tongue for feeding. The children giggle at your pantomime, but the elders remain grim. They know that this creature's foraging often wrecks shelters and scatters the vulnerable. The clan's oldest woman tosses dried seeds into the flames as an offering to unseen spirits, muttering a low chant that vibrates in her chest. She claims the Anteater carries the anger of earth spirits disturbed by hungry humans digging up roots. Historians still argue whether early Homo viewed dangerous animals as spiritual agents or just as hazards to avoid. In this campfire glow, both ideas feel equally real. A younger hunter examines the patch of fur you brought back. He holds it up to the firelight, marveling at the rough texture and the faint oily smell. Too thick for spear to pierce, easy, he grunts, demonstrating by jabbing his flint-tipped weapon into the fur. The tip barely dents it. That little experiment sparks worried murmurs. If the hide resists a spear, then the clan will need more than pointy sticks. Someone mentions the trick of using smoldering sticks to frighten crocodiles from the shallows. Could fire work on this land giant too? It's an intriguing idea, and a few of the boldest start waving torches in playful arcs, earning sharp scolds from the elders who remember the last. Accidental grass fire. You notice a peculiar scent on the fir muskie, but also faintly sweet, like overripe figs. A quirky observation, but potentially useful. Maybe the creature rolls in fruit or sap as it forages. That detail lodges in your mind, though you're not yet sure why. The night deepens. Above, the Milky Way spills across the sky like a river of powdered bone. Sparks drift upward to join that ancient glow. The laughter dies down as the children nod off. Curled against their mothers under rough hides, you lie on your back near the fire's edge, staring at the stars, trying to imagine what stories they could tell about predators and prey locked in their endless dance. The warmth of the fire on your chest contrasts with the cool tickle of night air at your feet. In the distance, somewhere out on the plain, comes that rasping sound again, steady, deliberate, wood on stone. The giant Anteater is still at work, oblivious to your watchful clan, yet somehow commanding its collective fear. For a moment you consider sneaking closer again, maybe to toss a rock and watch its reaction. But the memory of those claws carving into solid clay restrains your curiosity. Besides, you'd rather live to tell the tale than become part of tomorrow's cautionary gesture show. The clan's lead hunter takes a long look into the darkness, then shifts his gaze to you and points to fingers outward, miming a walking stride. His meaning is clear. Tomorrow at first light, you'll follow the trail again. The hunt has begun, not a chase yet, but the gathering of knowledge that might one day tip the balance. Sleep comes reluctantly. You drift in and out, waking each time the wind stirs, the grass or the fire crackles too loudly. Somewhere in that restless twilight of dozing, you dream of a shadow bigger than the moon's reflection sliding between the reeds, of claws scraping sparks from rock, of a tongue tasting the night air for something more than termites. When dawn's pale glow finally seeps across the sky, you rise stiff-limbed and wary. The Anteater's spoor leads westward, toward denser grass and scattered boulders, good terrain for ambushes, bad terrain for the barefoot. You know the path ahead won't just be a trail of prints in dust. It will be the first steps in a dangerous dance between a clever species armed with fire and a relic, beast armed with instinct and claws. At dawn, the air feels thinner, crisp, with the night's leftover chill, and the earth smells of damp grass crushed beneath bare feet. You heft a stone-tipped spear across your shoulder, still slick from dew, and set off following the trail that cut across the savannah like a scar. The spoor is easy to spot if you know what to look for. 3-toed impressions pressed deep, as if a heavy log had stepped there, spaced wide apart in a slow, purposeful march. Between them lies a long groove, where the beast's tail dragged, sweeping little furrows through the dust. At each step, you crouch to examine the print's edges, noting how the claw tips leave crescent scars at the front. The older hunters nod, signs that the creature's claws are still sharp and unbroken. A few strides ahead, your friend squats by a smashed mound of red clay. The hill is gutted, its tunnels exposed like snapped ribs. Ants crawl frantically over the wreckage, carrying pale larvae to safety. You kneel beside him and touch the clay. It's still damp, and when you press your palm to it, the warmth of recently disturbed soil seeps against your skin above. The morning light slants through thin clouds, throwing long stripes of gold and shadow across the tall grass. A pair of marabou storks stalks nearby, their dark silhouettes like hunched old men searching for breakfast. Their presence makes you uneasy. They often gather where predators have been. As the trail leads into a patch of acacia, you notice deep vertical scratches carved into the bark, fresh enough that sap still glistens. It's the anteater's way of sharpening its claws, or maybe of stretching after a meal. A quirky belief among your clan says these scratch-marked trees ward off lightning, even in fear. Humans seek omens of protection in everything. You pause to sniff the air and catch the faint scent, again musky, with a sweet undertone, almost like overripe figs left too long in the sun. That detail, first discovered on the fur, now lingers wherever the beast has passed. It must brush against sap-oozing branches, or forage among fallen fruit. You make a mental note, wherever that scent gathers. The creature isn't far behind. The ground dips toward a seasonal creek bed, now mostly dry, except for a few puddles that mirror the sky. Here, the prints spread farther apart, as if the anteater picked up its pace. Your lead hunter crouches to study the impressions, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. He gestures for silence, then points to a cluster of crushed reeds beside the creek, evidence that the creature had paused to drink. You run a finger along the moist mud there and imagine the scene. The beast, lowering its long snout to lap water, tongue flicking out like a snake's. Its massive shoulders hunched as it tried to keep balance on the uneven bank. The sun climbs higher, and with it the buzzing chorus of cicadas begins. Their shrill rise and fall, echoing across the plains. A breeze stirs the grass, releasing a dry, dusty scent mingled with the faint tang of distant smoke somewhere, miles away. Lightning or careless fire has sparked a burn. Your group halts at a curious sign, a half-collapsed log that bears chloroped grooves and shredded bark scattered like curled wood chips. Beneath it lies a tangle of broken eggshells from some ground-nesting bird, their insides licked clean. This anteater isn't sticking strictly to termites. Perhaps it's opportunistic, ready to raid any easy meal. Historians still argue whether such Ice Age anteaters occasionally scavenged or if these egg raids were anomalies. Either way, you feel the shiver of realizing your opponent is adaptable. The elder hunter who carries the clan's best spear, a blackened shaft, tipped with chipped obsidian signals for everyone to huddle in the shade, as you all crouch beneath the acacia's umbrella canopy. He drags the tip of his spear through the dirt to sketch a rough map. A winding line for the creek bed, a jagged cross for the termite hills, dots for the known watering holes. The claw-marked trail runs straight west, toward a chain of low ridges that break the horizon. His voice is low but firm as he outlines the plan. Track until noon. Return before dark. No confrontation yet, just learn its patterns. You nod, appreciating the caution. Yesterday's close encounter taught you that rash bravery is a good way to end up as a footnote in campfire pantomimes. You continue onward, stepping carefully over sharp pebbles that bite into your bare soles. The sun burns brighter now, drawing shimmering heat waves off the pale earth. Sweat beads on your forehead, dripping into your eyebrows, stinging your eyes. Soon, the trail veers into a patch of coarse shrubs. There you find more signs. A fresh mound clawed open, the insects within still swarming in disarray, their queen dragging herself to safety like a glistening pearl among dirt. A few scavenger beetles skitter at the disturbance, and you marvel that life persists even amid such destruction. Then comes a chilling discovery too. Juvenile antelope carcasses lying in shallow depressions, their flanks shredded but not eaten. Flies already cloud around them. One of the younger hunters mutters something about a bad omen. Perhaps the anteater slashed them in anger or defense and left them. Or maybe another predator killed them, and the anteater stumbled across the remains. The uncertainty gnaws at you. The air grows heavy, promising a storm later, as dark clouds gather along the far ridge. Thunder grumbles faintly like some grumpy elder who hasn't had breakfast. The group presses on, sensing they have only a few hours before the sky opens. You reach a clearing where the ground is packed, hard by frequent animal crossings. Here, a patch of flattened grass suggests the anteater lay resting, its body outline still faintly visible like an impression in clay. The print of its tail swirls out to one side like a great fan. You squat beside it, sliding your palm over the hollow, trying to gauge its weight by the depth of the depression. Your friend jokes quietly that you should leave an offering there so the creature won't follow you back to camp. Maybe a roasted tuber or two. You grin at the suggestion, glad for a moment of levity, though you both know that if the anteater wants to follow, no route will bribe it away. Beyond the clearing, the claw-marked path resumes, angling uphill toward the ridge. From that rise you'll likely see the vast stretch of the western savanna dotted with termite towers like miniature castles. You picture the anteater strolling there at dusk, a lone monarch surveying its insect kingdom at the ridge's base. You stop again to drink from a seep spring, cupping the cool water in your hands. The hunters share quiet sips, letting the fatigue ease before the climb. Your feet are coated in reddish mud that dries in uneven streaks up your calves. When you crest the rise, the view steals your breath, not just from exertion, but from its stark beauty. The plains roll endless beneath a broad sky, broken by the glint of a distant river and the dark lines of migrating wildebeest. To the north, a patch of trees shakes as if something large just passed through. You all crouch low, peering over the ridge's edge. A fresh gouge mars the nearest termite hill, an unmistakable sign that the anteater is still close. The elder lifts a hand for silence, listening intently to the wind. You follow suit, ears straining past the buzz of insects. Somewhere below comes that telltale rasping again, faint but distinct. As the giant claws tear into another mound, the plan for the day was only to observe, but adrenaline prickles at your neck. Some of the younger hunters shift uneasily, itching to test their spears, yet the elder's sharp glance stills them. Patience, he mouths. You retreat slowly, retracing your steps so as not to disturb the quarry. The journey back toward camp is quieter, each step thoughtful. You've gathered more than just tracks. You've seen the creature's feeding sites, its resting spots, and its territorial marks. Knowledge, the elder says with a rare smile, is the first weapon. As the camp's fires wink into view over the horizon and thunder rolls again overhead, you feel both weary and oddly triumphant. Today you didn't win a battle, but you learned the terrain of the coming war. By the time you return to camp, dusk has already dipped the sky in copper and plum. Smoke from the central fire drifts lazily upward, curling into the first stars. The clan gathers in a rough half-circle, their faces lit by firelight and shadowed by long days of worry. Tonight is council night, a meeting as solemn as your kind ever manages, given that most debate happens through guttural sounds, gestures, and the occasional eye roll worthy of any modern teenager. You settle cross-legged on a mat of woven reeds, spear laid across your knees. The lead elder, his hair white as the ash at his feet, raises a gnarled hand to hush the chatter. His eyes sweep the circle, then he points toward you and your friend. That's the signal. Share what you've seen. You rise, heart thudding a little, as all eyes turn your way. Using the tip of your spear, you scratch a crude map in the dirt, the ridges, the creek bed, the gouged mounds, even the outline of the resting hollow. The children lean forward, wide-eyed, while the adults nod at familiar landmarks. Your friend pantomimes the anteater's strange rasping sound, producing a noise so eerily accurate that a few people glance nervously toward the dark beyond the fire. The elder listens, nodding slowly, then drags his own finger across the dirt to draw a line toward the cliffs that rise east of the lake. He taps the cliff's edge and makes a sweeping motion everyone understands. If the beast can be driven toward that precipice, gravity may do what spears cannot. A heated discussion follows. Some prefer to migrate east immediately, abandoning the termite-rich grasslands for safer rocky valleys. Others argue that leaving would mean surrendering fertile hunting grounds and the best reed beds for weaving. You watch the debate seesaw, like the tail of a nervous lizard. One of the middle-aged hunters suggests building larger fire pits at the camp's edge, believing bright flames can scare the anteater away. Another shakes his head and points to his own singed forearm, a reminder that fire, while useful, can be as much an enemy as any beast. The oldest woman, the one who tosses seeds into the flames at night, interrupts by holding up a bundle of dried herbs tied with sinew. She sprinkles a few leaves into the fire. The smoke rises, fragrant, almost sweet. She claims the scent soothes hostile spirits. Historians still argue whether early human rituals like these were acts of psychological comfort or believed to have practical protective effects. Tonight, the fragrant smoke at least eases the tension, if not the anteater's appetite. Your friend proposes a trial. Bait the creature with one of the dried fish baskets near the marsh and see if it responds to smell. That idea earns a chorus of curious murmurs. Food as lure is an old hunter's trick, but rarely attempted on a creature that supposedly eats only termites. A boy barely into adolescence blurts out that he saw hyenas circling the anteater's old feeding ground at dawn. The elders exchange glances. Hyenas, while dangerous scavengers, sometimes harass bigger animals, snapping at heels and flanks. If those packs could be drawn near the trap site at the right moment, perhaps they'd help panic the anteater toward the cliff. The plan forming in everyone's minds feels bold, yet possible. Still, doubts bubble up. The anteater's hide, as you demonstrated, resists a spear's tip. Its claws can slice through bark like soft bread, and its strength could easily overturn a torchlit barrier. You stare at the flames, remembering how the creature rose against a termite hill, how its massive shoulders bunched and shifted under thick fur. An idea strikes you, not a fully formed strategy, yet just a glimmer of hope. The anteater's poor eyesight. Perhaps that weakness can be exploited somehow. The council's murmur dips into silence as the lead elder leans forward, tracing with a charcoal-blackened stick a crude image of the beast being funneled between two fire lines into a narrow ravine. He points to the hunters yourselves and then to the cliff symbol. The message is simple. We corner it, drive it forward, block its escape with noise and fire. The thought of that final chase sends a thrill and a tremor down your spine. It's daring, yes, but it would require preparation, more torches, stronger spear tips, and coordination among all clan members, women and adolescents included. After the meeting breaks, you step away from the fire, needing a moment of cool night air. The sky has cleared to reveal the moon's pale disk, and a stray breeze brings the marsh's damp, earthy scent. You hear soft laughter behind you, two young girls teasing the boy who claimed to see the hyenas. Humor still blooms even under threat, as if humanity's first defense mechanism is a good giggle. Nearby, your friend squats beside a stone, sharpening the flint edge of his spear by rubbing it in short, precise strokes. You join him, striking sparks with each pass, and exchange a quiet, wordless understanding. The days ahead will test every ounce of patience and ingenuity. Later, as the fire dies to glowing coals, you lie on your side beneath a stretched hide. The ground is warm from the earlier blaze, and the distant chorus of frogs rises from the marsh. Sleep drifts closer, but your thoughts keep circling the anteater scent of sweet musk and the way it raised its snout when the breeze shifted. Perhaps, you muse, it could be drawn by smell as much as by sight, in a half-dream state. You picture reed-woven traps smeared with sweet fruit, torch lines snaking across the savannah, hyenas skulking at the periphery, and your clan poised with sharpened spears behind jagged rocks. It's a vision both thrilling and terrifying. A sudden night breeze rustles the nearby grass and snaps you awake. For a heartbeat you think you hear that familiar rasping claws tearing clay, but it's only the wind rubbing branches together. You let out a shaky breath, chuckle softly at your own jumpiness, and let sleep claim you again. Morning arrives with the rich scent of roasted roots and the distant caw of ibis birds. Sunlight dapples through gaps in the reed shelters, drawing golden patterns on the ground. The clan stirs early. The day will be devoted to experimenting with new tools. You watch as two women kneel near the fire, heating chunks of resin until they grow tacky, then daubing it onto spear tips to secure the stone blades more firmly. A pair of adolescents practice swinging ember-carrying sticks, figuring out how to keep them smoldering during the hunt without letting them flare uncontrollably. The older hunters debate which stones chip into the sharpest flakes obsidian from the river's edge or the harder basalt from the cliffs. A few even experiment with hafting double-edged blades onto shorter shafts for throwing, while others fashion makeshift torches by wrapping dried reeds in animal fat. You lend a hand shaping the reed bundles, finding that twisting them tighter makes them burn slower. The clan's tinkering feels almost like a village workshop grunts. Laughter, the occasional shout when someone burns their fingers. Progress comes one blister at a time. By midday, your hands are sticky with resin, your arms dusted with soot. Yet seeing the pile of newly reinforced spears, bundles of torches, and crude ember pots lined up gives you a cautious sense of readiness. The lead elder inspects the arsenal, nods with something close to approval, and then draws a circle in the dirt around the supplies. He gestures to the sky, meaning, the spirits will watch these tools tonight. Even in these practical tasks, ritual lingers. Perhaps it brings unity, or perhaps it's just a shared way to mark a fragile step forward. As the sun lowers once more, and the horizon turns bronze, you feel that tomorrow's hunt, no longer just talk, has truly begun to take shape. The next morning dawns under a pale sheet of mist that hugs the savannah, softening the outlines of thorn trees and termite towers until they look like ghostly sculptures. The cool air tastes faintly metallic, as if the dew carries a memory of distant storms. You stretch your arms, sore from the previous day's resin work, and watch thin smoke rise from embers of the night fire. Your clan wakes slowly first, the women tending the coals, then the younger hunters shaking sleep from their stiff limbs. The lead elder circles the clearing, tapping each spear with the tip of his staff as if blessing it. When he stops before you, his lined face breaks into the barest hint of a smile. He points at the ground, then toward the western ridge where you last saw the beast scout. You understand. Today, the scouting will be deeper, closer to the Anteater's heartland. You pack light, a water skin made from cured hide, a small pouch of dried tubers, your best spear with a resin-fixed obsidian head, and a torch wrapped in reeds but left unlit for now. The morning's chill makes you grateful for the short cape of wildebeest hide across your shoulders, still carrying the faint scent of smoke and animal fat. Your group 6 hunters, and 2 adolescents eager to prove themselves, sets out in single file. The mist clings to your legs as you move, dampening the grass and leaving dark streaks on your calves. A few steps ahead, your friend hums a low tune that sounds halfway between a war song and a lullaby, perhaps to keep his courage up. The savannah is quiet, except for the occasional distant bark of baboons and the buzz of insects, shaking dew from their wings. A lone Cory bustard strides across your path, eyeing you with indignant suspicion before flapping away in slow, heavy beats. As the sun climbs, the mist begins to burn off, unveiling the terrain, a head-undulating grassland, dotted with charred stumps where past lightning fires have scarred the earth. You notice that several of the termite mounds bear fresh gouges and collapsed roofs, their once neat towers now crumbling heaps. You run your fingers across one such mound and find the soil still moist. Clumping between your fingertips, the beast passed here during the night. Your lead elder crouches to examine the tracks. The three-toed impressions look deeper than before, suggesting the anteater moved slower or heavier, perhaps tired from feeding or simply weighted by damp fur. He gestures toward a line of prints that veer off into a patch of tall golden grass, then motions for silence. You part the grass cautiously, every rustle sounding like a trumpet blast in your anxious ears. Inside lies a shallow depression, a bedding hollow lined with crushed stems. The smell of sweet musk clings to the spot stronger now, unmistakable. You exchange a look with your friend. This was its night bed, among the flattened stems. You notice claw marks scratched into bare earth, almost like idle doodles left by the beast's restless forelimbs. A quirky observation strikes you. The claw traces form, looping arcs, as if the anteater drew circles while it shifted in its sleep, perhaps unintentional. But you can't help picturing a bored titan etching shapes in the dirt. One of the adolescents reaches to touch the center of the hollow. You stop him with a sharp shake of your head. No need to leave humans scent. They're better to let the place remain as it was. The group presses on, following the tracks toward the western ridge. The ground slopes gently upward, sprouting more shrubs and the occasional boulder jutting like knuckled fists from the soil. The air grows warmer, carrying the earthy smell of wet clay baking under morning sun. Halfway up the incline you come across a tree, whose trunk bears deep vertical rakes. Resin oozes slowly from the wounds, glinting amber in sunlight. You can almost hear the scrape of claw against bark, a sound that lingers in your imagination like fingernails on dry wood. Near the ridgetop, the tracks fan out again, as though the creature wandered while foraging. Here you find a shattered tortoise, shell cleanly split, edges bearing parallel claw grooves. This discovery sparks an animated, if hushed, debate. Did the anteater merely disturb the tortoise, or did it eat it? Historians still argue whether giant anteaters were strict insectivores, or sometimes opportunistic meat, judging by the shell's crushed interior. You lean toward the latter. A sudden breeze brings with it the faint yipping cries of hyenas. Down below, in the shade of an acacia grove, you spot 3 of them circling something unseen. The lead elder crouches to observe, eyes narrowing. It seems the scavengers patrol the same feeding grounds as your Korean. Unwelcome coincidence, yet possibly an exploitable one. The group finds a boulder-strewn overlook that gives a clear view of the plains below. You kneel at the ledge and scan the savanna. To the west lies a line of low cliffs, carved by ancient river flow, their edges crumbling where storms have bitten chunks away. The elder taps that direction with his spear, but, giving you a pointed glance, there lies your eventual battlefield. You spend the rest of the morning charting the route, from the bedding hollow to the cliffs, noting choke points where fire lines or red nets could funnel the beast. On one flat patch of soil, the elder sketches symbols, 3 dots for torch lines, a zigzag for a ravine, a spiral for the sweet-smelling bait pit you've yet to construct. By noon the sun beats down mercilessly. Everyone's shoulders glisten with sweat, and your mouth tastes of warm dust. The group descends to a shady marshy hollow for a brief rest. Dragonflies dart above stagnant pools, while frogs chorus unseen beneath mats of reeds. Here the hunters begin discussing how to gather resin and reeds in bulk. The adolescents propose weaving wider nets and drying them over smoky fires to harden the fibers. Another suggests building portable ember bowls lined with clay to keep coals alive during the drive. You use a broken reed stalk to draw a rough anteater silhouette in the mud. marking its tiny eyes and giant claws. Your friend laughs and adds comically large teeth to the drawing, earning a snort of amusement from a nearby hunter. Even in preparation for danger, humor threads through the day like a vine. The rest stop ends when a sudden gust carries the smell of rain, sharp, mineral, urgent. Dark clouds gather above the far cliffs, veiling the horizon in a curtain of gray. Thunder grumbles faintly like an old drum being tested. The elder signals for retreat. You don't want to be caught on open ground when the sky decides to spill. The return trek quickens under a dimming sky. Sheets of wind ripple across the grass, bending seed heads in waves. By the time you reach camp, the first fat drops begin to fall. Dotting your hide cape with dark splotches, rain arrives in earnest as the clan huddles under reed shelters patched with hides. The smell of wet earth thickens, mingled with wood smoke from hastily covered fires. Everyone listens to the storm drum against the roofs, the children clutching their mother's arms whenever thunder cracks too close. Even as the storm rages, the council resumes around a smaller indoor fire. You recount the day's findings: the bedding hollow, the clutched tree, the tortoise shell, the hyena's proximity. The elders lean in close, their faces shifting between worry and calculation. A quiet decision takes form. The hunt will not wait long. The Anteater's nightly raids grow bolder, and each new gouged mound edges closer to camp. The plan to lure it toward the cliffs is now more than theory, it is tomorrow's work. Outside, the rain slackens to a soft drizzle. The air inside the shelter feels heavy with damp warmth and anticipation. You stretch out by the fire's edge, gazing at the shadows flickering along the walls. A strange calm settles over you, the kind that sometimes precedes storms of a different kind, the storm of action. Your last thought before sleep steals in is the memory of that sweet musk in the bedding hollow. Somehow, you suspect that scent will be key to tomorrow's strategy. The rain clears by dawn, leaving the savannah washed clean and glistening. Drops cling to every blade of grass like a field of tiny mirrors, catching the first gold of sunlight. The air smells sharp wet earth, crushed herbs, a faint tang of ash from half-drowned embers. You rise from damp reeds, stretching a spine stiffened by yesterday's march, and notice steam curling upward from the termite mounds as the warming sun strikes the cool soil. Today, the clan gathers not to travel, but to plan. You squat near the main fire beside your friend, watching smoke coil from a pot of boiled roots. All around, people bustle in focused silence, some mending nets, others bundling reed torches. The morning has the charged quiet of a theater before the curtain rises. The lead elder calls, everyone together with 2 sharp taps of his staff against a rock. When the clan forms a semicircle around the glowing embers, he squats low and begins drawing lines in the soot-dusted dirt, circles for the camp, a jagged triangle for the cliffs, dots for fire pits. At the center, he sketches the long snout and sweeping tail of the anteater, simple but recognizable enough to make the children giggle nervously. His hand moves to mark, arrows converging on the triangle. The message is clear: drive the beast toward the cliffs. But how to drive such a brute? That question hangs in the smoky air like a vulture. One of the younger hunters proposes building shallow pits lined with sharpened stakes, deadly but time-consuming. The adolescents, brimming with enthusiasm, suggest weaving nets from reed and sinew to throw over the creature's head. The older woman, who always carries seed bundles, shakes her head, sprinkling ash on the drawing for emphasis. Too strong. Her gesture says, a compromise emerges. Combine the old tricks, fire and noise, with new ones, red nets and torches smeared with resin to spit sparks. If not to wound, at least to confuse and corral the beast. Your friend raises an idea. He's been saving since yesterday. Use the anteater's poor eyesight. Approach from its blind side. Wave burning reeds close enough to frighten but not touch. Then guide its retreat in the desired direction. A ripple of nods greets this suggestion. Another hunter mentions the hyenas again. Their yipping laughter had echoed near the bedding hollow. Perhaps they could be lured with scraps of dried meat to harass the beast during the final drive. The thought of recruiting nature's scavengers as allies makes several clan members grin. It's both cunning and risky. The meeting pauses when a girl of about 10 summers runs up, holding a half-eaten fig. She points to the sweet pulp and then to the direction of the western ridge, chattering in short bursts. You catch enough to understand. She found fig trees, heavy with fruit near the marsh. At once you recall the musky sweet scent on the creature's fur and bedding hollow. The dots connect. Maybe the anteater has a weakness for the sugary aroma of overripe figs. A quirky fact, if true, could become your greatest advantage. The elder grunts approvingly and gestures for a basket. The women begin gathering figs, some fresh, some already fermenting in the damp heat. Their plan: set baskets of sweet bait near the narrow approaches to the cliff path. The theory is as old as hunger itself: lead appetite to danger's edge. You spend the late morning experimenting with tools. Resin-smeared torches hiss and spit when lit, throwing off tiny sparks. Reed nets strengthened with braided sinew prove lighter and easier to throw than expected. A few hunters test the embers in clay bowls, discovering that damp grass stuffed on top keeps the coals smoldering longer. By midday, the clan takes a break beneath a broad acacia. You sit gnawing a roasted root while watching a pair of weaver birds stitch a hanging nest above. Nature's little architects seem oblivious to the tense energy humming below their branch. The lead elder joins you, lowering himself onto a nearby stone with a grunt. He studies the plain, his eyes following distant columns of wildebeest kicking up dust. He taps his staff twice on the ground, his version of a compliment, before muttering that unity, not spears, will decide the outcome. Historians still argue whether early human hunts succeeded more through individual bravery or collective coordination. Your clan is unconsciously proving the latter. The afternoon is devoted to testing the sweet fruit lure. A group walks to the marshy edge, where figs grow, and sets down a half basket beneath a termite mound scarred by old claws. Then everyone withdraws to a cluster of rocks to wait. For an hour, nothing stirs except the wind and a curious ibis who pecks at the figs before wandering off. Just as you begin doubting the idea, a ripple moves through the grass. A warthog trots up, sniffs, and begins feasting noisily. Disappointment ripples through the watchers. Your friend jokes that at least you've invented warthog bait. The laughter that follows is brief but welcome. Yet within minutes, the warthog's head snaps up. It snorts, ears flicking, then bolts. The reason becomes clear when the reeds nearby shiver and part. The giant anteater emerges like a drifting shadow. Its snout sways side to side, tongue flicking the air as if tasting the sweet scent. The sight grips you, proof that the lure works. The beast shuffles closer to the basket, claws scuffing the soil. With slow precision, it noses the figs, then scoops one into its mouth with that lightning-quick tongue. Everyone crouches lower behind the rocks, holding breath. The creature feeds for several minutes, completely absorbed. Then, as abruptly as it appeared, it swings its tail, snorts, and lumbers away toward the west, leaving half the basket emptied. Excitement buzzes through the hiding hunters. This discovery changes the coming battle. The anteater can be led, not just chased. By late afternoon, you're back at camp, reporting the successful trial to the clan. Cheers break out, quiet but heartfelt, like the first spark of hope after a long drought. Preparations shift into higher gear. Baskets are filled with figs, some deliberately bruised to release more scent. Resin torches are set in piles near the path. Nets are rolled and tied for quick throwing. The adolescents practice shouting and drumming on hollow logs to learn a rhythm loud enough to spook the beast without startling the hunters themselves. Night approaches under a violet sky, the horizon still glowing faintly from the sun's retreat. The clan lights smaller fires in a wide crescent around camp, forming a protective arc. Sparks rise like a reversed meteor shower. You sit near one of these fires, sharpening your spear tip again, though you suspect the weapon will serve more as reassurance than as actual harm against that thick hide. Your friend hums his familiar tune beside you, slower this time, a soft undercurrent to the crackle of flames. The seed-scattering woman performs a brief ritual, tossing handfuls of crushed fig leaves into the flames so the sweet smoke wafts across camp. Whether magic or morale booster, it settles the nerves of the younger children, who soon curl up to sleep. You stay awake a while longer, eyes fixed on the western darkness beyond the grasslands, imagining the path tomorrow's hunt will take. Sweet scent leading forward, torches flaring, hyenas circling, humans shouting, a living funnel driving a prehistoric titan to the cliff's edge. A sudden gust rattles the reeds and sends a spray of sparks into the air. You blink against the fleeting brightness, wondering whether you're ready for what tomorrow's dawn will demand. But as the fires burn steady and your clan sleeps under the stars, you feel that for the first time the odds have shifted, even if only slightly, in your favor. The first rays of dawn seep like liquid copper over the grasslands, painting each dewdrop as if the savanna itself is armored in tiny shields. You wake with a stiff back and a mouth dry as cracked clay, but the cool morning air feels sharp and bracing. All around, the clan stirs in hushed anticipation. Today is for mapping the killing ground. You chew a strip of dried tuber while the lead elder gathers the hunters, gesturing toward the western cliffs. His gnarled hand outlines the shape of a steep, dry ravine that cuts diagonally across the plain before ending abruptly at a crumbling precipice. The plan: lure the Anteater into that narrowing trench where slopes rise like walls on both sides, leaving only one exit, the cliff's edge. By mid-morning, a scouting party, including you, your friend, two experienced hunters, and one adolescent eager to prove himself, heads west. The trail across the plain is rougher after the recent rains. Your bare feet sink into patches of soft mud, sucking noisily with every step. A breeze sweeps across the tall grass, carrying scents of wild sage and damp earth, but also the unmistakable musky sweet trace that now makes your pulse quicken. Halfway to the ravine, you pause at an abandoned termite tower leaning like a crumbling chimney. The mound's face is claw-slashed with wet grooves that glisten in the angled sunlight, fresh, perhaps from last night. You crouch to feel the soil. It's still damp and smells faintly of crushed fig, a sign that the beast roamed here recently, probably on its way to the sweeter groves beyond. The adolescent points to a wide patch of flattened grass leading toward the ravine. The prints there show the three-toed imprints deeper on the downslope, lighter on the upslope, evidence of the animal's careful climb. You can almost picture the Anteater lumbering through moonlight, massive tail dragging a groove behind it like the keel of a slow boat. Further along, the ground dips into a funnel-shaped basin, carved long ago by flash floods. Shrubs cling to its sides, roots gripping exposed rock. The ravine narrows here to just a few spear lengths across, tight enough that a beast of that size could barely turn. Your friend squats to test the soil. It's firm but crumbly near the edges where recent rains have softened the base. He exchanges a glance with you if the Anteater panics and lunges against those crumbly walls. The slope could give way, sending it tumbling. You press on, climbing the final rise to reach the cliff edge. The drop is steeper than you remembered, nearly twice a man's height in the first ledge, then plunging again in jagged steps down to a rocky bottom littered with pale stones like giant teeth. Wind rushes upward, carrying the dry, mineral smell of fractured rock. For a long moment, everyone stands in silence, staring into the gorge. Here at last, the savanna's endless openness yields to a natural trap. The lead hunter runs a palm along the cliff's lip, then steps back and gestures. This will be the battlefield's endpoint. You walk the length of the ravine from cliff to open plain, noting choke points where reed nets might be spread or torches planted. Each narrowing bend feels like a page in a story, guiding the creature toward its fate. A break under a thorn tree lets the group rest and drink from leather water skins. The adolescent sketches the shape of the ravine in dust with a stick, adding dots for the fig baskets. The lead elder corrects him by drawing an extra curve where a shallow pool might slow the beast's steps, even in the midst of Stone Age tools. The strategy session looks like a general's war council. As the sun climbs high, you begin marking spots for the bait. Using sharpened sticks, you scrape shallow hollows in the ground near natural choke points. 3 along the ravine's curve, and 2 at the approach path. These will cradle the baskets of fermenting figs collected earlier by the women back at camp. By afternoon, the scouting party returns carrying news of their findings. The clan gathers around the central fire while you describe the ravine's walls, the crumbly ledges, the way the wind gusts upward at the cliff edge. Your friend pantomimes the Anteater's likely confusion when faced with torchlight and shouting echoes in that narrow space. The children squeal at the mimicry, but the elders nod, their faces grave yet hopeful. That evening, preparations intensify. The adolescents haul bundles of reeds to the ravine's entrance, while older hunters test the ember bowls to ensure the coals last the walk across the plain. Torches are soaked again in fresh resin so they hiss when ignited, an unsettling sound you hope will rattle the beast. You and your friend spend time reinforcing the nets by adding an extra weave of sinew near the center. These nets are not meant to hold the giant anteater. Everyone knows that's impossible, but even a moment's tangling might steer it off balance or slow a retreat as twilight deepens. You take a solitary walk to the western rise, overlooking the plain. From here, the landscape glows in layered colors: orange grass, violet shadows, a darkening sky streaked with fire clouds. Far away, near the fig grove, you think you see a ripple in the grass, though it might just be wind. You imagine the Anteater out there, unaware that a band of hominins is scripting the final act of its reign. When you return to camp, the evening council convenes once more. Around the fire, voices rise in gruff debate over tomorrow's plan. Should the clan strike at dawn when the creature feeds lazily, or at dusk when winds blow from the plain toward the ravine, carrying the sweet scent downhill? The seed-scattering woman insists on dusk, her reasoning whispered, as if to unseen spirits, is that firelight unnerves wandering beasts more after sunset. The lead elder listens to all arguments, finally thumping his staff into the dirt to signal agreement with dusk. That decision ripples through the circle like a cool wind. The time is set. Later, after most have lain down beneath reed shelters, you sit awake, sharpening your spear's edge by firelight. The sound of stone grinding on stone is strangely soothing. Your friend joins you, humming his usual tune, quieter now, almost like a lullaby for warriors. Above, the stars wheel into position. The Milky Way arches like a faint smoke trail across the heavens. You remember the elder's words about unity being the true weapon, and wonder if that belief, this fragile web of cooperations, what truly sets your kind apart. Historians still argue whether early Homo survived Ice Age. Predators because of tool-making alone, or because they learned to coordinate in ways their rivals could not. Watching your clan labor side by side, you feel the answer lean toward cooperation. A distant howl from the hyenas threads across the plain, rising and falling like eerie laughter instead of fear. It sparks a spark of strategy in your mind. Perhaps tomorrow night, their hunger will push them into your firelit corridor, snapping at the Anteater's flanks, turning allies out of opportunistic scavengers. You bank the fire's coals under a layer of ash, to keep them alive till morning, and finally crawl under your hide cape. The night is cool, and smells of damp reed, and distant figs carried on the breeze. In your half-dreaming state, you picture tomorrow's hunt as if it were a painted mural on some future cave wall, torches blazing like small suns, shadows stretching long across stone. the giant anteater lumbering forward between walls of fire and shouting humans, its claws flashing as sparks dance in its fur. For now, the camp lies peaceful under the wheeling stars. But everyone senses that the calm is only the pause before the story's most dangerous chapter. The morning breaks in muted gold, the air damp and cool, with the lingering breath of night. You wake to the distant call of cranes echoing from the marsh and the smell of damp earth rising with the mist. Today the clan is unusually quiet during the morning meal. No teasing, no off-key humming, just the soft sound of chewing roasted roots and the low crackle of the fire. Everyone senses the nearness of the hunt. It hangs over the camp like a heavy cloud. The lead elder taps his staff twice against the hearthstone to draw attention. He makes a sweeping motion toward the west, then points up at the sky to signal the plan. Work through the day preparing. March at dusk. You feel a nervous flutter in your chest. Dusk now has a deadline attached. The hunters begin to gather, the baskets of overripe figs that had been set aside to ferment in the shade. Their skins have turned wrinkled, sticky, and fragrant, releasing that sweet, musky perfume the anteater seems to crave. Women tie the baskets with strips of sinew so they can be carried on shoulders without spilling. The adolescents are assigned to collect bundles of green reeds to use as torches, their freshness ensuring the smoke will be thick and white when burned. They work in pairs, hacking reeds at the marsh edge and bundling them with rawhide straps. Their chatter, though subdued, carries an undertone of excitement. This is the first time many will take part in something larger than a routine hunt. You and your friend kneel by the fireside to coat spare spear points with a second layer of resin. The smell is sharp and piney, clinging to your fingers and hair. Sparks pop from the embers, as if applauding your diligence. A middle-aged hunter with a deep scar across his cheek tests the reed nets, tugging them with calloused hands. Satisfied, he lays them near the embers so they dry enough to stay light yet remain flexible. The seed-scattering woman shuffles over, carrying a clay pot filled with crushed fig leaves mixed with bits of dried bark. She tosses a handful into the fire, and a column of sweet-smelling smoke rises into the air. To trick the beast's nose, her gesture implies. Historians still argue whether early foragers discovered the use of aromatic smoke by trial or by ritual inspiration. Either way, it smells almost festive in the tension-filled camp. By midday, the preparations are nearly complete. The sky turns a hazy silver as thin clouds drift in, softening the sun's glare. You sit with your back against a termite mound, sharing a strip of dried antelope with your friend. He hums quietly, the same tune he always hums before dangerous work. A soft shout draws your attention. The adolescent who scouted the hyenas points excitedly toward the distant plain. Squinting, you catch sight of 3 dark shapes trotting along the edge of a dried creek bed. Hyenas, again, nosing the ground in search of carrion. The sight stirs a hopeful thought. If they linger nearby tonight, they may unwittingly become part of your plan. By late afternoon, the clan gathers at the western approach. Torches are tied in bundles for easy carrying. Fig baskets are distributed among strong-armed hunters. The younger ones carry hollow logs to use as drums when beaten. Their sound echoes like thunder over the plain. As you march, the sun dips behind the far ridge, gilding the tall grass so it glows from within. Shadows stretch long and dark, and the air grows cooler with each step. The smell of figs rides the breeze in warm waves, sweet enough to make your stomach twitch with hunger. You reach the first chosen choke point, a narrow path between 2 clumps of thorn trees, and set down a basket of fruit. The elder instructs the adolescents to smear some of the soft pulp along nearby stones to intensify the scent. The sticky sweetness coats their fingers. One boy jokingly licks a bit and grimaces at the fermented temps, drawing a few muffled laughs. Moving as a single line, the party continues into the ravine corridor, placing more fig baskets at intervals leading toward the cliff. At each stop, reeds are stacked and ember bowls positioned, ready to be ignited when the signal comes. The setting sun bleeds red across the western horizon, and shadows deepen into violet. A hush falls over the group, as if the landscape itself is holding its breath. When you reach the cliff edge, you pause to look down at the jagged rocks below, now barely visible in the dusk gloom. Wind sighs upward, carrying the mineral scent of stone dust. The lead elder gives the silent signal to spread out. Women and adolescents climb to higher ground along the ravine sides, positioning torches. Hunters crouch at the bends, where the walls narrow. You and your friend take a spot near the second fig basket, spears ready, though you know tonight's weapons are sound, and fire more than sharpened stone. Darkness gathers quickly as the last glow fades. A pale moon edges above the horizon, half hidden by streaks of low cloud. The air cools further, and mist begins to creep upward from the marshy hollows, lending the scene a dreamlike haze. A hollow log is struck 3 times deep, booming notes that roll like distant drums of thunder. Another log answers further down the ravine. The sound startles a roosting ibis that flaps off into the night. The clan falls silent again, waiting. Moments stretch long, broken only by the rustle of grass in the breeze and the soft drip of moisture from reeds. You shift your weight carefully, muscles aching from the crouch. Then you hear it, the rasping sound you've come to dread. It carries faintly from the open plain beyond the first fig basket, a slow, deliberate tearing noise, claws raking earth. Your heart kicks against your ribs. You glance at your friend. His eyes are wide, but he gives a tight nod. The sound grows louder, accompanied by the subtle swish of a massive tail through grass. The moonlight picks up a ripple in the tall stems, a dark mass moving with steady purpose toward the bait. One of the adolescents near the front basket bites his lip, gripping a torch unlit, waiting for the elder's signal. The clan stays frozen, barely breathing. Through the mist you finally see it. The giant anteater's back, arching like a living hill, shaggy fur silvered by moonlight. Its long snout sways as it picks up the fig scent, tongue flicking the air. It stops at the first basket, snuffling, then plunges its head in to slurp the soft pulp. A ripple of excitement passes through your group, quickly stifled. You watch in awe and fear as the beast lingers over the figs, then lumbers forward down the path exactly as planned, toward the second basket near your hiding spot. The elder raises a hand for patience. Not yet time to light the torches. The anteater must be well within the ravine before the trap springs. As the creature draws nearer, you catch the mixed smells of musk and fermenting fruit carried on the shifting breeze. Your fingers tighten on your spear. Despite the fear, a strange pity stirs in you. This animal is following a simple instinct, unaware of the trap humans have woven out of scent, fire, and noise. But pity won't keep your clan safe. You force your focus back to the task. Guide the beast further in, hold your ground, and wait for the drums and torches to unleash the chaos that will drive it onward. Mist thickens around your ankles, swirling ghost-like as the anteater approaches the second basket, lowering its head to feast. The moon slides free of a cloud, casting silver on the ravine walls and gleaming in the beast's tiny eyes. Somewhere in the distance, a hyena's laugh-like call rises, carrying eerily across the open plain. You hope the scavengers are near enough to sense opportunity once the chase begins. The hollow drums boom again, one low, one high, going between the ravine's stony sides. The anteater pauses, lifts its head, sniffing the air. For a tense moment, you fear it might turn back. The elder's silhouette stiffens atop a ridge, hand raised in the command to hold still. Tonight's hunt has shifted from anxious preparation to the brink of action. The air itself seems to hum with expectation as the clan, the beast, and the surrounding wilderness all wait for the first spark to ignite the chase. The drums fall silent, leaving behind only the echo that trembles along the ravine walls. For a heartbeat, the entire world seems to be listening. The grass no longer sways. The frogs in the marsh hold their throats. Even the night breeze softens, as if not to interfere. You feel your own pulse thudding in your ears, and for an instant you are convinced the anteater can hear it too. The giant beast lowers its head again, reassured by the sweet smell of figs, and resumes licking at the pulp. The rasp of its long tongue pulling fruit from the basket sounds strangely loud in the hush, like someone tearing wet cloth. Every movement of its massive shoulders makes the moonlight shimmer across its bristling fur. You grip your spear tighter. From the corner of your eye, you see your friend's knuckles whiten around his own shaft. The plan is simple, yet terrifying. Let the creature enter the ravine's narrowest bend before springing the trap. You think of the council's debates, the long days of preparation, the figs harvested and nets woven, everything now balanced on the patience of a hungry anteater. The signal finally comes. The lead elder's silhouette raises a hand high against the moon, then drops it like a falling stone. A hunter crouched near the first ember bowl strikes flint against iron-rich stone. Sparks catch the resin-soaked reed torch with a faint hiss, and then a sudden whoosh of flame. Instantly the acrid scent of burning resin rolls into the night air, smoke curling white and thick. Other torches flare one after another, a chain of small suns sprouting along the ravine. Shadows leap across the walls, huge and distorted, dancing like ghosts. The light dazzles your eyes. You blink hard to adjust. The anteater jerks its head up at the first hiss, tongue flicking nervously, nostrils quivering. It sways backward a step, claws scraping furrows in the soft ground. You sense the shift the creature's slow. Deliberate calm is cracking. Two adolescents on the ridge beat their hollow log drums in unison. Deep booming pulses that rattle the air and echo off the cliffs. Others shout, high and sharp, adding a human edge to the thunder. Startled, the anteater swings its tail wide, knocking the fig basket aside. It huffs, a short explosive sound, and rears halfway up on its hind legs. For the first time you see the claws displayed like curved daggers, catching moonlight and glinting pale. Now, the elder growls from his perch. You and your friend leap from behind the fig basket, waving torches you've just lit from the nearest ember bowl. Heat licks your face. The resin crackles as droplets sizzle and spit. The beast snorts, sidestepping from the flame, trying to retreat toward the open plain, but a curtain of torch-wielding hunters blocks that way, shouting and stamping the ground. The anteater wheels around with surprising speed for its size, claws raking the air. It swipes at a torchbearer, slicing a reed torch in half, sparks spinning away like fireflies. The hunter stumbles, but recovers, backing toward the wall as his companions close ranks. You shout until your throat burns, waving your flaming reedlow near the beast's flank. The smell of singed fur drifts up faint, but enough to provoke another startled huff. Slowly, reluctantly, the anteater backs deeper into the ravine, exactly where you want it. Up on the slopes, adolescents pound the drums faster now, alternating beats so that the echoes bounce in strange rhythms. The sound confuses even you. It must be disorienting to the animal trapped between the echoes. A sudden crash breaks the rhythm. The anteater lunges sideways toward a rock face, claws striking sparks off stone as it tries to climb out. Pebbles rain down, clattering against shields of bark and hide. The slope crumbles under its weight, and it slides back with a frustrated roar-like rasp, taking advantage of its momentary loss of balance. Two hunters fling their reed net. The woven mesh sails through the smoky air, catching the beast across its forelimbs. The anteater thrashes, easily tearing the net, but that heartbeat of entanglement lets torchbearers push closer, hemming it between fire and stone. You feel the vibration of its movements through the soles of your feet, each stomp a shudder that trembles in your bones. The air grows hotter, dense with smoke, fig scent, and the animal's musky panicked out. From somewhere behind you comes the distant, wavering call of hyenas, then another, closer, answered by a chorus. Their laughter like cries rise over the drumbeat. You glimpse three shapes flitting along the ravine edge above, silhouettes pausing to watch, opportunists drawn by commotion and the promise of scraps. The Anteater senses them too. Its head jerks upward, small eyes catching a glint of torchlight. It huffs again, swiping the air, but the scavengers keep their distance, content to shadow the chaos below. Step by step, shout by shout, the clan drives the beast farther down the funnel. The walls close in, shadows pressing tighter. Each bend you pass feels like crossing another threshold of no return. Your friend coughs against the resin smoke, but keeps his torch raised, its tip shedding sparks that drift like tiny meteors. He leans close enough to mutter between breaths, "Almost there," though his voice trembles with both fear and excitement. At one narrow choke point, the Anteater wheels suddenly, attempting to bolt back the way it came. For a heart-stopping instant, you lock eyes with the animal teeny dark pupils in a mask of fur-reflecting flame. You feel a jolt of raw sympathy again, but there's no time for hesitation. You and two others jab the ground in front of its claws with your spear, shafts not to wound, but to startle it forward. It hesitates, claws gouging deep lines into the soil, then swings around once more, retreating toward the cliff corridor. The drums thunder triumphantly at this small victory. The moon climbs higher as the ravine twists closer to its end. Mist from the marsh has followed you in, curling around ankles, glowing faintly in torchlight so the whole scene looks like some ancient ritual dance. Historians still argue whether such coordinated drives were born of instinct or early strategic thought. Living it now, you sense it's both a mixture of shared fear and clever improvisation. At last you glimpse the final stretch ahead. The ground slopes slightly upward toward the cliff's edge, where moonlight gleams coldly on jagged rock. The wind here blows inward from the open plain, carrying fresh waves of fig sent forward, as if nature itself is luring the creature to the brink. A pause ripples through the hunters. Everyone senses they are approaching the most dangerous moment. In this tighter passage, the Anteater will either keep retreating toward the drop or panic and lash out with every weapon nature gave it. You shift your torch to your left hand, spear to the right, ready to jab the soil again if it turns. Sweat slides down your temples, stinging your eyes. Behind you, an adolescent beats the drum slower now, a deliberate, suspense-filled rhythm, like a racing heartbeat magnified. The Anteater snorts, sides heaving, its breath steaming in the cool night air. It swings its tail again, slapping dust into the flames, causing sparks to rise in a brief fiery halo. For a moment it stands half upright on hind legs, claws spread as if to challenge the walls themselves. Yet the fire, the echoes, the fig-scented path ahead, and the confusing cries of hyenas circling above all, conspire to press it forward. With a grunt that sounds almost like resignation, the creature drops back to all fours and shuffles on, each step echoing in the confined stone corridor. The hunters exchange glances of grim relief, but no one dares cheer yet. The beast is moving closer to the final trap, but the night is far from over. The moon is higher now, a pale coin caught in torn strips of cloud. Its light drips over the ravine walls, mingling with the orange glow of torch fire and the shifting haze of resin smoke. Every breath you take tastes of scorched pine and the sticky sweetness of figs. Beneath those scents lurks the heavier odor of the Anteater's musk, sharp, animal, anxious. Your group keeps advancing in slow, deliberate steps. Each hunter waits for the person next to them to move, like links in a cautious chain. Behind you the drum beats continue, now steadier and more deliberate. Thump, thump, thump. A rhythm that feels as if it's guiding not only the creature, but also your own heartbeat. The giant Anteater has crossed the third bend of the ravine and is halfway up the shallow rise that leads to the cliff corridor. Here the path widens briefly before narrowing again. This is the most dangerous stretch. There's enough room for the beast to spin around or charge. You glance at the elder perched on an overhanging rock above. His outline looks carved from stone, utterly still, except for the small twitch of his raised fingers, giving the signal to hold formation. The hyenas have followed all the way, their eyes glinting from the ridge like scattered embers. Occasionally one gives a quick yip or a nervous laugh bark, testing the air. They stay just beyond reach of torchlight, as though waiting for the right moment to rush in. A sudden gust of wind whistles through the corridor, bending the flames so their light strobes against the walls. The anteater flinches at the flickering shadows, swings its great tail to shield its side, and snorts in irritation. For a heartbeat you fear it will lunge sideways into the slope again, but the freshly crumbled soil still looks unstable. Perhaps the animal remembers its earlier failed attempt to climb. Your friend steps up beside you, voice low but steady. If it charges, hit the ground near the claws first, never the chest. You nod. The lesson learned from watching crocodile drives. Loud strikes to the soil can startle large beasts, more than blows to their bodies. When the anteater reaches the next fig basket, it hesitates, nostrils twitching, then lowers its snout to lap at the pulp. The tension around you slackens a fraction. The sweet lure still works. A few hunters exchange brief eye contact, a silent agreement to keep pressing forward while it's distracted. The seeds. Woman climbs onto a rock ledge above the path and tosses crushed fig leaves onto a nearby torch. The flame flares greenish for a moment, releasing a stronger sugary aroma that drifts toward the animal's head. The anteater raises its snout slightly, as if sniffing a memory, and steps farther uphill. Above, a ragged veil of cloud slides across the moon, dimming the natural light and making torch glow more dramatic. Shadows of the hunters stretch and twist across the ravine wall. Their movements resemble the dancing figures in old cave art. Historians still argue whether such night hunts later inspired the first ritual dances painted on stone. Standing here amid firelight and echoes, you can almost believe it. A light drizzle begins, just enough to cool the sweat on your brow, but not enough to quench the torches. The damp air thickens the resin smoke into pale ribbons that snake along the ground. The anteater snorts again, clearly unsettled by the scents, but still unwilling to turn back into the ring of fire and noise. Then a mishap. One adolescent beats his drum too hard. The hollow log cracks with a splintering pop, and the sudden silence after the break spooks the animal. It jerks upright, claws scything the air, tail slapping dust into sparks. The younger hunters recoil in fright. You react instantly, thrusting your spear butt into the soil near the beast's foreclaws, and shouting in as deep a tone as your throat can manage. Others imitate you, thumping the ground in rhythm. The vibrations and united roar push the creature sideways, toward the cliff-bound corridor again. Rain-cooled, mist rises from the earth, glowing in the torchlight as if the ground itself exhales steam. The scene looks otherworldly, glowing fog, gleaming claws, flames flickering on wet walls. A fleeting thought crosses your mind that future generations might speak of this hunt as a legend, not a memory. The anteater lumbers forward once more, grumbling low in its throat. Its steps are slower now. Fatigue shows in the heave of its ribcage. Every few paces it stops to sniff the air, then huffs and continues as if compelled by an invisible leash made of fig scent and fear of fire. A new sound joins the drums, the distant growl of thunder over the marsh. Lightning flickers briefly on the horizon, casting quick white flashes that make everyone flinch. Your friend murmurs that the storm may break soon. Another reason to end the drive quickly before rain smothers the torches. At the final curve before the cliff slope, the group halts to reposition. Hunters with fresh torches jog ahead to plant them on either side of the narrowing passage, forming a flickering gate of light. The adolescents without drums carry stones to toss behind the animal if it attempts to backtrack. You notice claw scratches high on the ravine wall here, older marks, perhaps from when the anteater explored this corridor before. The gouges glisten wet in the torchlight, a reminder that this is not the first time beast and canyon have met. The hyenas begin to descend the side slope cautiously, drawn by the smell of figs and the animal's musk. Their shadows dart and weave at the edge of light like impatient spirits. Their presence emboldens some hunters, who mutter that the scavengers, snapping and laughter might spur the creature onward in panic. The elder signals with a slow sweep of his arm, resume the push. You and your friend advance, waving torches low, to keep the flames near the beast's eyes and snout. Others raise their voices in a chant-like rhythm, 2 short shouts, 1 long. The combined sound, echoing in the narrow corridor, makes the air vibrate in your chest. The anteater grumbles, swinging its tail in warning, but keeps shuffling forward. Mud sticks to its heavy claws. You see the grains sparkle briefly in each step's lift and fall. The drizzle thickens, spattering your face and hissing against the torch tips. Steam coils upward, where raindrops strike the hot resin. The smell is sharp and almost metallic now, mingling with sweat and the earthy scent of wet clay. Your arms ache from holding the spear and torch so long. The muscles in your shoulders burn, as though tiny fires smolder beneath your skin. Still, you press forward, keeping the slow rhythm so as not to startle the beast into a wild charge. At last, you catch a glimpse of open sky ahead, where the walls part, the narrow ramp leading to the cliff's brink. Beyond it, the land drops into darkness, the rocks below hidden by shadow and mist. The elder raises both hands, palms out, to signal caution. This is the final approach. One wrong move here, and the animal could whirl back with desperate fury. A gust of wind sweeps in from the gorge below, carrying a faint mineral chill and pushing torch smoke sideways in ghostly banners. The anteater lifts its snout, sniffing, perhaps sensing the empty space ahead. Its claws scrape stone as it takes another, reluctant step. You realize how close the plan is to working, and how fragile the balance remains. The next minutes will decide whether the giant anteater becomes a story of triumph told beside future fires, or a cautionary tale about overconfident hunters. Above, thunder grumbles again, as if the sky itself drums a warning to finish before the rain arrives in earnest. The ravine grows steeper and narrower as the clan drives the giant anteater toward the cliff's final slope. The drizzle has stopped for now, leaving behind a cool dampness that makes the earth dark and slick under your bare feet. The air feels heavy, like it's waiting for something to break, thunder, rock, or nerve. The creature pauses just short of the last fig basket, sides heaving, tongue flicking sluggishly as if tired from the long retreat. Steam rises faintly from its broad back, where damp fur meets body heat. You can hear the rasp of its breath over the soft crackle of torches. The lead elder signals a halt. Hunters freeze mid-step, torches held steady, spears tilted downward to show they're not yet striking. Everyone senses that the anteater is close to panic. One wrong shout, one reckless jab, and it could whirl around in a frenzy. A gust of wind slips down from the cliff face, swirling smoke and carrying the scent of figs past the creature's snout. It lowers its head, sniffs the last basket, and nudges it aside to scoop a sticky chunk of pulp. A ripple of relief passes through the hunters. The lure still holds. Your friend leans in, whispering so low, you almost miss it. When it's done feeding, we move again, slow. You nod, eyes fixed on the curve of those claws, resting in the mud like hooked sickles, waiting for command. The hyenas above have grown bolder, padding closer to the torch line. Their green-flecked eyes catch glints of firelight as they pace, issuing short, impatient yip. Their presence adds a new kind of tension. Allies by accident, yet liable to spook the anteater at the worst moment. The seed-scattering woman climbs halfway up the slope and crushes another handful of fig leaves between her palms, letting the juice drip toward the breeze. The fragrance drifts down, cloying and sweet, wrapping the scene in a strange mix of feast and battle. Historians still argue whether such early lures count as one of humanity's first forms of hunting technology. Watching The beast sniff and shuffle forward, proves it's at least effective. As the anteater licks the last pulp, thunder rumbles again from somewhere over the marsh, closer this time. The elder frowns up at the clouds, then gestures for everyone to resume the advance before heavy rain ruins the torches. The chant begins anew, 2 short shouts, one long echoing down the ravine like the pulse of a primitive drum. Torches flare brighter as they're lifted and waved low across the beast's path. You step carefully, mindful of the slick mud beneath your toes. Spear angled toward the ground to guide rather than stab. The anteater swings its massive tail at the nearest flame, scattering sparks. A few land on your forearm, stinging but harmless. The beast snorts, lowers its head, and resumes its reluctant march, up on the rocks. 2 adolescents pick up broken reeds and beat them against the stone walls, adding sharp clacks to the chant. The irregular echoes bounce back and forth so that the ravine seems full of invisible pursuers. Halfway up the slope, a sudden obstacle slows the drive. Rain from earlier has loosened part of the ravine wall, leaving a mound of crumbly clay in the path. The anteater stops, sniffs it, then begins clawing at the pile, as if trying to dig a new escape tunnel. Move it now, the elder rasps. You and 3 others surge forward, waving torches and shouting. Resin smoke stings your eyes, but the bright flare makes the beast shy away from the wall and continue upward. Behind you, someone slips in the mud and slides a few feet before catching himself with a spear shaft, splashing brown water up your calf. Another flash of lightning flickers across the open mouth of the cliff corridor ahead, momentarily whitening the jagged drop beyond. The sight seems to unsettle the anteater as much as it unsettles you. The creature hesitates, lifts its snout to sniff the gusty air rising from the precipice. You see its ears twitch as a distant hyena laugh echoes off the walls. The scavengers have begun to circle nearer the exit point, pacing in silhouettes like restless shadows cast by the moon. For a long breath, nobody moves. Beast, hunters, hyenas, as if the whole canyon is caught in a pause between inhalation and exhalation. Then the elder swings his arm downward, the signal to finish the drive. You step forward first, torch low, chanting with the others. The anteater's head turns toward you. Its eyes catch the flame's glint, tiny but bright, reflecting a wild confusion. It swipes at the ground, raking deep furrows into the mud, but steps backward, pushed by light and sound, toward the final incline dot at the upper edge of the ravine. Women beat their hollow logs again, louder, the rhythm pounding like distant thunder rolling through your chest. The sound seems to reach through the animal's hide and into its bones. It flinches with each boom. Your friend calls out above the noise, warning to keep torches spread in an arc so the creature feels walled in on all sides. Hunters obey, fanning out as best the narrow corridor allows. The smoke grows thicker from damp reeds sizzling, filling your nose with bitter pine that makes your eyes water, step by step. The giant anteater climbs the final stretch. The ground here tilts upward at a sharper angle, the soil damp and streaked where earlier rains drained toward the precipice. Its claws dig for purchase, leaving grooves as wide as your palm. A quirky detail catches your attention, even in the tension. Bits of fig pulp cling to the beast's forelimbs like sticky beads, glistening in torchlight, as if the animal wears primitive jewelry. The thought almost makes you smile, almost. The hyenas choose that moment to begin their eerie chorus again, a wavering rise and fall that prickles the back of your neck. The anteater huffs sharply, ears twitching, but keeps backing up the slope. Another rumble of thunder shakes loose small stones from the ravine walls. One pebble bounces off your shoulder, reminding you how fragile the terrain is. Your mind flashes to the plan's endgame, that the cliff's own weakness might finish what your spears cannot. Suddenly the beast lashes sideways at a torchbearer too close to its flank. The swipe slices through the reed torch, scattering glowing embers. The hunter staggers back with a startled cry, but avoids the claws. You and your friend shout in unison, stamping your spears into the ground in front of its forefoot. The vibration makes the animal snort and retreat a pace up the slope. The chant grows louder, more urgent now, as if every voice is trying to push the creature with sound alone. Rain-damp air presses cool against your overheated skin. The torch flames flare and gutter with each gust of wind funneling through the ravine. At last the giant anteater reaches the mouth of the corridor where the ground levels briefly before dropping away into the gorge. It pauses there, sides heaving, snout raised to the upward rushing wind. The cliff edge lies just a few strides beyond, close enough that you can hear the hollow rush of air from the void below. The elder raises both hands high, palms out, a gesture that needs no words. Hold your ground and let the creature step into the open on its own. You obey, lowering your voice, but keeping the torch angled forward. Your breath fogs in the night air, each exhale quick and shallow with the strain of anticipation. The hyenas gather at the sides, eyes like sparks in the dark. Their growls rumble beneath the chanting like a grim drum roll from the wild. Lightning flashes again, revealing for an instant the white froth of river spray far below the precipice, a stark reminder of what waits if the beast is driven just a few more paces. Your shoulders ache, your throat is raw from shouting, but you hold steady. One final push remains to turn this carefully staged drive into victory. A stillness settles over the last stretch of the corridor, as though the world itself is taking one long, trembling breath. The giant anteater stands at the brink of open ground, steam rising faintly from its damp fur. Its flanks move in slow heaves, pulling in the cool cliffside air scented with figs, resin smoke, and the mineral temps of the gorge below. The moon slides out from a torn cloud, spilling a silver-white beam across the animal's back and the jagged lip of the precipice beyond. For a fleeting instant, the scene looks frozen, like a charcoal drawing torchbearers, silhouetted on the ravine walls, nets draped over shoulders, hyenas crouched as dark commas against the glowing grass, and the beast itself, poised in indecision. The lead elder lowers his hands and signals the women on the upper ledges. They begin their hollow log drumming again, slow and steady, each beat reverberating in your chest like the pulse of a living canyon. Two adolescents on your flank join in with reed rattles, adding a dry hiss that makes the shadows seem to whisper. The anteater swivels its small eyes toward the noise, nostrils flaring. It takes one tentative step backward, claws leaving deep crescent prints in the wet soil. The hunters nearest the edge raise their torches a little higher, flames bowing in the night breeze. Your friend leans close enough for his breath to stir the hair at your ear. Another few paces, he murmurs, voice ragged with smoke and anticipation. You nod, shifting your weight on aching calves. Spear butt braced in the mud, a new sound slides into the night, the distant rumble of approaching rain, low and unhurried. You glance at the sky. More clouds are gathering, swallowing bits of the moon's glow. The storm is still far enough not to douse the torches, but it's creeping closer. One of the hyenas breaks the tableau by letting out a sharp yip, then another, edging forward a few steps, as if testing the invisible boundary between courage and foolhardy hunger. The anteater snaps its head toward the noise, huffing out a heavy gust, but does not lunge. The elder flicks his hand again. Advance. You and the line of hunters shuffle forward, torches lowered toward the ground to throw long flickering shadows across the beast's path. The scent of scorched resin mingles with the damp air, stinging your throat and eyes. The anteater reacts by rising partway onto its hind legs, an intimidating display that shows the full span of its curved claws, each one glinting like wet bone. The sight makes the younger torchbearer next to you hesitate and step back. You grunt at him, a low sound meant to steel his nerve, and keep moving forward. Then comes the misstep, as you plant your spear, but in the ground for balance, the tip strikes a buried pebble, sending up a sharp clack. The anteater flinches and spins halfway round, tail lashing. A shower of dust and pebbles cascades from the wall, where its claws scrape for purchase, before panic can spread. The seed-scattering woman tosses another handful of crushed fig leaves toward the nearest torch. The sweet smoke rises in a warm spiral, carried by the upward sweeping wind to brush against the animal's muzzle. The effect is almost uncanny. The creature lowers its head again, distracted by the familiar aroma. Seizing the moment, two hunters beat the earth with the shafts of their spears in the practiced rhythm, thump thump, thump, imitating the cadence of the drums above. The vibrations ripple through the soft ground. You can feel them in your knees. The anteater grunts, ears twitching at the tremor, and takes another step back. A thin drizzle begins to fall, cool needles against your overheated skin. Instead of dousing the torches, the damp only makes the resin flames spit and crackle louder, sounding like a chorus of tiny snakes. The orange light reflects off the wet rock faces, doubling in brightness where it hits moisture-slicked patches. You feel the ache in your shoulders deepen, the weight of the spear and torch gnawing at your muscles. Still you press on, chanting with the others now, to sharp cries, one drawn-out howl that echoes eerily through the canyon. The hyenas add their wavering laughter call to the din, creating a soundscape so chaotic that even you feel slightly disoriented. The anteater's head swivels back and forth as though trying to locate every threat at once. Another flash of lightning reveals the gorge below in stark detail, its rocky maw gaping wide, whetstones glistening like the teeth of some giant predator. The sight makes your pulse spike. You wonder if the animal senses the danger ahead, or merely smells the void. The lead elder, voice deep but calm, utters a single command-like grunt. You all surge one step closer in unison, torches forming a trembling wall of light. At that moment, the anteater suddenly lunges sideways, toward a rocky outcrop that juts from the wall. It clambers partway up, claws raking the crumbling slope, sending a spray of mud and stones down on your heads. You duck instinctively as grit stings your cheek. Your friend yells, "Strike the ground," and together you and two others slam your spear shafts into the soil, stomping in time with the chant. The vibrations and noise cause the creature's claws to slip. It slides back with a startled, rasping huff, tail lashing so violently it snaps a torch clean out of another hunter's grasp. The fallen torch sputters in the damp mud, smoke rising in thin gray threads. The hunter leaps to snatch it up, relighting it from a companion's flame. Step by careful step, the beast yields more ground, backing toward the lip of the cliff corridor. Its nostrils flare wide, steam pumping from its sides. The fig-scented smoke thickens again as the seed woman throws the last of her leaves into a nearby torch. The sweet fumes curling between beasts and humans, like an invisible leash. You can hear the cliffside wind now, a hollow whistling that rises from the gorge like the breathing of the earth itself. That sound, combined with the approaching storm's far-off growl, forms a grim duet beneath the drums and chants. Historians still argue whether early Homo recognized the tactical advantage of landscape features such as cliffs, or merely stumbled upon them by chance. Tonight, watching your clan work with terrain as though it were an ally, you're inclined to believe your ancestors learned strategy from the land itself. The anteater's next step brings its rear claws within just 2 strides of the drop. Everyone senses the nearness of climax. Even the hyenas crouch lower, tails flicking in a predator's anticipation. Your chest heaves from exertion, breath hot in the cool air, but you dare not lower your torch. Rain-slick sweat drips from your chin, hissing as it hits the flame's resinous cloth. The elder raises his arm once more, palm outward, the sign to be ready for the final surge, but hold until his signal. The entire group freezes again, breath fogging, hearts thudding in sync with the distant thunder. You study the beast in this tense pause, mud streaked across its shaggy fur, sticky fig pulp clinging like strange beads, its claws gleaming darkly in torchlight. A part of you feels an unexpected pang of respect. A rival survivor of the same unforgiving world, the wind gusts stronger from the void beyond the cliff, rattling loose pebbles that skip down the slope and vanish into darkness. The anteater swivels its ears toward the sound, snout lifting to test the air. Another step backward, and the hunt's long-woven plan will hang by a single breath. Its coarse hair comes away in wet clumps, heavy with water. One hunter saws carefully at the forelimbs to remove the formidable claws intact. These curved keratin scythes will later be dried and set into wooden handles for scraping hides or carving softer woods. A practical reward from a dangerous rival. You slice strips of meat from the haunch first, dark red and firm despite the river's chill. The adolescent assisting you recoils at the sight, but quickly steels himself, holding a woven basket ready to receive the cuts. Meanwhile, the elder above supervises the lowering of rope nets to haul up heavier portions. The process is slow. Each load tied, hoisted by those at the rim, emptied into reed-lined sleds for dragging back to camp. A quirky observation crosses your mind as you work. The hide's dark wet fur sticks to your forearms in ragged tufts, making your skin look strangely patterned, almost striped. You and your friend share a quiet laugh about it, a brief moment of levity amid the labor. Hours pass in steady effort until the carcass is reduced to sections, manageable enough to transport. The remaining bones, massive ribs, long spine, are left wedged on the ledge for another day's retrieval. Before climbing back up, the seed-scattering woman, who had insisted on joining despite her age, presses a hand smeared with ochre onto the wet rock near where the animal fell. Her crimson palm print stands stark against the dark stone, a silent memorial to the hunt. The ascent with loaded nets is grueling. Mud-slick ropes burn your palms, and water trickles down from the cliff wall onto your face as you climb. At the top, the hunters drag the sleds across the damp grass, pausing often to rest shoulders and switch pullers. The return to camp is quieter than yesterday's march to the ravine. The victory feels heavier now, tempered by the long toil and the reality of death. When you arrive, the rest of the clan greets you with relieved smiles. Children peer into the baskets at the thick claws and pieces of meat, whispering in awe. The elder orders the carcass pieces laid near the central fire, where women begin cleaning and salting what meat they can with coarse lake-bed crystals. Strips are hung on green branches near smoky fires to dry for storage. That evening the clan shares the first small cuts roasted over fresh embers. The smell of sizzling meat mingles with fig-scented smoke, and for the first time in weeks, everyone eats. Without glancing nervously toward the dark, you chew the tough but flavorful meat slowly, tasting both victory and reverence in each bite. Your friend jokes that perhaps the sweet fig bait has made the animal's flesh richer. Laughter ripples through the circle, soft, tired, but genuine, as the fire burns lower and shadows lengthen. The elder raises a claw he's kept aside and plants it upright in the earth beside the flames. He gestures at it solemnly, as if to say, "This claw is a reminder of the night. Your clan worked as one to overcome a stronger foe." You watch the flickering light glint along the curved talon and feel a swell of pride that's different from the thrill of the hunt. Pride in the cooperation that brought everyone safely home. Above, the night sky clears to reveal stars, bright as chips of ice. The Milky Way spills overhead like a pale river, mirrored by the faint shimmer of the real river hidden in the gorge below. You lie back on a rolled hide, arms aching but heart calm, listening to the soft murmur of voices telling fragments of the story already. How the beast's claws flashed in the rain, how the torches hissed like snakes, how the drums echoed louder than thunder. The saga of the hunt is already becoming legend, carried in whispers around the fire. Palms from hauling ropes, a dull ache in your calves from the long nights advance up the ravine, around the camp. Similar groans rise as other hunters stretch out their limbs. Today's work is quieter, but just as important, preparing the spoils of the victory, so the clan can feed through coming lean weeks. The women and older children are already busy at the central fire pit. Strips of anteater meat, dark and coarse, hang in neat rows from green branches arranged like racks over smoky fires. The smoke curls upward, scented with damp wood and the faint sweetness of fig bark added as flavoring. Your first task is to help scrape the hide. The beast's enormous skin has been stretched across a frame of flexible branches near the marsh edge. Water drips from it as if it still remembers last night's rain. You take up a sharpened claw, ironically from the same animal, and begin shaving away bits of flesh and fat. The scraping sound is steady, gritty, almost meditative. Nearby, your friend works beside you, humming the same two short one long rhythm of the drive chant, but softly, almost playful now. Every so often he flicks a stubborn scrap of sinew at you, earning a mock glare and a grin. One adolescent, fascinated by the claws, carefully sorts them by size. The largest, curved like a sickle, he sets aside for the elder to keep as a talisman. The smaller ones he pairs for future scraping tools, or perhaps for hafting onto short handles as cutting hooks. As you work, the seed-scattering woman moves from rack to rack, sprinkling crushed fig leaves over the drying meat. When asked why, she merely shrugs and gestures skyward. Perhaps a habit, perhaps a quiet thanks to the lure that brought the animal down. Historians still argue whether early people discovered fig leaves, preservative oils by trial or by custom. Either way, the aroma drifting over the camp is pleasant and sweet. By mid-morning, the sun grows, hot enough to steam moisture off the hides. The smell is pungent smoke, damp fur, raw flesh, yet oddly reassuring, proof of food secured. The elder calls a meeting beneath the wide shade of a flat-topped acacia. Hunters, women, and adolescents gather while the youngest children play nearby, stacking pebbles into small towers. The elder speaks in gestures and guttural syllables, retelling key parts of the hunt: the patient lure of figs, the torches flaring in rain, the united push toward the cliff. He uses a curved claw to etch lines in the dust zigzag for the ravine, dots for fig baskets, a half circle for the cliff's edge. You feel a stir of pride, seeing the story laid out like a map. Perhaps this is how the first battle diagrams were born, not drawn on hides or stone yet, but traced in damp soil beneath a tree. After the council, the elder selects a small group: yourself, your friend, 2 hunters, and an adolescent who return to the gorge for the rest of the remains. Ribs for tools, heavier bones for splitting into marrow, scraps still usable for drying. The trek back to the ravine, under clear daylight, feels almost foreign compared to the stormlit hunt. Sunlight brightens every gouge in the walls, each torch-blackened mark now just a dark smear on clay. Birds nestle again in crevices that only hours ago echoed with human chants. At the cliff rim, you pause to gaze down at the river churning below, now a milky green under sunlight. The ledge where the anteater fell is slick but reachable with the same rope left tied to the thorn tree. Climbing down is slower this time. Without last night's adrenaline, you feel each strain in your tired muscles. Your friend cracks a dry joke about how much easier it is to face a beast than to face a day of cleanup. On the ledge, the stripped carcass remains as you left it, bones pale against dark rock, bits of sinew drying in the sun. Flies rise in a small cloud when you approach. Working together, the group loosens the ribs one by one, using stone flakes as chisels. The sound of snapping cartilage echoes off the walls like brittle twigs. Breaking. The adolescent discovers a length of tendon still intact and stretches it experimentally between his hands. It's strong, springy, useful for binding spearheads or repairing nets. He coils it carefully and tucks it into a reed pouch. You gather pieces of bone to be shaped later into awls and needles. A quirky thought crosses your mind. One day, a claw-tipped needle might stitch a hide garment. binding the clan against winter winds, an unlikely gift from last night's foe. By midday, the group has packed as much as can be carried. You ascend the rope again, sweating under the weight of bone-filled baskets. Each step upward, the morning sun climbs lazily above the eastern ridge, spilling warm light across a savanna scrubbed clean by the previous day's rain. The air is crisp, smelling of wet grass and faint wood smoke from the banked fires that survived the night. A flock of guinea fowl scurries near the marsh, their wings flapping noisily as they scatter from the sudden stir of people rising. You wake stiff, but rested, stretching arms still marked by faint bruises from rope hauling. The clan begins the day with a mood lighter than you have felt in many moons. There's no looming threat to guard against at dawn. Instead, there's the practical business of transforming what remains of the Anteater into lasting tools, clothing, and food. Today the elder plans a small ceremonial gathering at midday to honor the hunt and to decide how to divide the bounty, while others tidy the camp. You and your friend join a work group assigned to shape the bones recovered from the gorge dot near the central fire. The long anteater ribs are propped in a loose circle, like ivory-colored posts. Each one bears grooves where muscle once clung. You squat beside a flat rock chosen as a work surface, and take up a hammerstone to crack one rib at its midpoint. The blow sends a muffled snap through the marrow-filled bone, followed by a soft ooze of rich red-brown marrow that pools like warm wax. The women scoop the marrow carefully with wooden slivers, saving it in reed bowls to be mixed with dried berries later, a nutritious paste for journeys. The smell is savory and faintly sweet, stirring your appetite even this early. You continue breaking ribs into shorter lengths that will serve as awls, spear haft pins, and fish hooks. The rhythmic tap-tap of hammerstone on bone becomes a kind of camp music, joined by the low hum of your friend as he scrapes cartilage from vertebrae. One adolescent discovers that when he drags a rib edge across taut hide, it leaves neat, shallow scratches, perfect for smoothing leather. His accidental find draws admiring grunts from older hunters. A new tool has been discovered, not by plan, but by play. The hide of the giant anteater has now dried to a heavy, dark gray sheet stretched on its frame. You and another hunter take turns cutting it into more manageable strips. Each slice releases a musky scent that clings to your hands, stubborn even after rinsing in the marsh water. These tough strips will become ground mats and weatherproof, wrappings for food bundles. Meanwhile, the seed-scattering woman collects the creature's smaller claws in a shallow basket. She taps each one on a stone to test for cracks, setting aside the unbroken ones to fashion into pendants or cutting tips. The curved shapes glint dully in the morning light, like tiny crescent moons. By late morning, a breeze springs up, carrying with it the aroma of marrow stew bubbling in a clay pot over the fire. Someone has added a pinch of crushed fig leaf, and the smell is earthy sweet, a scent now woven into the memory of this entire hunt. At the elder's call, the clan gathers beneath the broad shade of the acacia tree, the same meeting place where he'd drawn the plan of the hunt in dust. This time the ground is marked with fresh handprints in ash, children's smaller palms alongside the hunter's calloused ones, a spontaneous decoration of unity. The elder raises the largest preserved claw high above his head. Sunlight gleams along its curve. In deep, resonant tones, he speaks a few ritual words, half gesture, half sound, praising not just the hunters, but the women who prepared the lure, the adolescents who drummed the chase, even the hyenas whose eerie cries helped herd the beast. You catch the children giggling at that last part, imitating hyena laughter until an older cousin shushes them. Yet even their amusement feels welcome today. The clan's mood is celebratory, not fearful. After the brief ceremony, portions of dried meat are allocated into woven reed baskets for each family. The choicest cuts are set aside for elders and for travelers who will soon scout farther grazing areas. The marrowberry paste is stored in sealed clay pots, and buried half-submerged in cool, damp earth to preserve it. Your friend leans over and whispers that the anteater's flesh indeed tastes sweeter than any other game, likely from all the figs it ate. The remark sparks a quiet ripple of laughter among nearby hunters. In the afternoon, work shifts to preparing tools. Under the sun's slanting rays, you scrape a long shin bone smooth, testing its edge against a strip of dried hide until it leaves a clean cut. Beside you, the adolescent who discovered the hide-scoring trick now fashions a handle by braiding sinew and plant fiber, his tongue poking out in concentration. Historians still argue whether such breakthroughs, turning prey remains into multi-purpose instruments, happened as isolated flashes of insight or as gradual, shared learning. Watching the boy teach another how to braid the handle, you suspect progress was always communal, sparked by curiosity as much as necessity. Later in the day, the camp grows quieter as most chores wind down. Hunters repair spear shafts, using links of the anteater's tendon as binding. Women rinse the remaining hides in the marsh shallows. Children chase each other between drying racks, waving slender ribs like pretend swords. By dusk, the clan has transformed the spoils of the hunt into tangible security. Bundles of smoked meat stacked beneath bark-covered shelters, hide mats drying on poles, bone tools arranged neatly beside the fire. The smell of smoked meat and faint fig sweetness clings to every breeze. That evening's meal is a hearty stew of marrow, tubers, and a handful of wild herbs gathered by the seed-scattering woman. Its aroma drifts across camp, drawing even the most tired workers to the circle around the fire as bowls are passed. The elder again plants the largest rib upright next to the claw marker, adding a fresh branch of fig leaves at their base. In the amber firelight, the two trophies cast elongated shadows across the ground, their outlines merging like a single guardian figure. The conversation over dinner is livelier than in weeks past. Hunters recount their favorite moments of the chase, the echoing drums, the sparks hissing in rain, the beast's final slip on the crumbling edge. Adolescents argue over whose torch burned brightest. Children act out the anteater's retreat, swaying on hind legs before tumbling into the sand with theatrical cries. Your friend, between mouthfuls of stew, nudges you with an elbow and says you stomped the ground so hard last night that the earth itself joined the chant. You laugh, shaking your head, but the warmth of shared humor eases the last traces of fatigue from your limbs. Above, stars prick the darkening sky earlier than usual, bright against the lingering after-storm clarity. The Milky Way arches overhead like a silver scar, echoed faintly by the ribbon of mist still curling above the distant gorge. The elder leads, a soft chant of gratitude, not a loud battle rhythm, but a gentle, almost melodic hum that blends with the night wind. Everyone joins in, even the youngest humming in uneven tones, filling the air with a low, comforting vibration that seems to settle the very grass. You sit back on a hide mat near the fire's warmth, feeling the day's aches fade as the chant ebbs into silence. The smell of stew, smoke, and fig leaf still hangs in the cool night air. In this peaceful moment, you realize the giant anteater has already passed from being a threat to becoming a story, its presence lingering now in the tools you hold, the food you eat, the laughter you share before sleep. You glance again at the claw and rib standing side by side in the firelight. Their shadows lean together like companions, relics of a night when the clan's unity proved sharper than any claw. You pull your hide covering tighter around your shoulders, the musky scent of the anteater's pelt now oddly comforting. The sounds of insects hum beyond the ring of campfire light, and somewhere far off a lone hyena calls once, not in laughter but in a drawn-out moan, as if mourning the loss of a worthy rival. With that sound fading into the breeze, your eyes grow heavy, and sleep folds over you gently like a second hide, warm, protective, dream-laden with torches, stars, and the distant roar of water beneath the cliff. The next morning dawns cool and bright, with a haze of mist still clinging to the marsh edges. The sun rises behind thin clouds, painting the savanna in soft gold that glimmers on every blade of wet grass. The air feels lighter now, scented with smoke from the drying racks and the sweet tang of fig leaves that still hang near the fire pit. Trophies. You wake early with a mind as restless as the dragonflies skimming the pools. Though the anteater is gone, the memory of the hunt lingers in your muscles, a strange mix of tension and pride. Your friend is already awake, tending the embers to boil a thin porridge of tubers and leftover marrow. Breakfast is simple and silent. The younger children munch the chewy dried meat from the previous day, their faces smeared with smoky grease. The seed-scattering woman sprinkles more fig leaf ash into the porridge, saying it keeps the stomach calm. Historians still argue whether fig's medicinal use was guessed by chance or learned from watching animals, but it has become a trusted ritual in the clan's meals. After the meal, the elder announces that a few will return to the gorge, not to gather remains this time, but to mark the place of the hunt so that it will be remembered by future wanderers. You and your friend join the group along with 3 adolescents, eager to leave their own marks on history. The trek feels easier now in the daylight, with lighter loads. Dew-beaded spiderwebs glint like strings of pearls between thorn bushes. Small birds hop along the path as if curious about the human procession. The ground, though damp, no longer squelches. The breeze has already begun drying yesterday's mud. As you approach the ravine, the air cools perceptibly, carrying the faint mineral scent of the river far below. The cliff looks less menacing under the bright sun, though the blackened torch marks on the walls remain as ghostly streaks of the night's struggle. Standing at the precipice, the elder plants his staff upright in the earth and gestures for silence. The group forms a semicircle overlooking the gorge. A thin curl of mist still rises from the river like breath from some slumbering giant. The seed-scattering woman brings out a pouch of ochre gathered from a nearby riverbank, using her thumb. She draws a series of curved lines on the cliffside rock, crude but recognizable shapes. The long-snouted beast, the torches, the drums, and finally a wavy line for the cliff edge. You and your friend add your own handprints beside the drawings, pressing wet ochre palms against the stone. The adolescents do the same, their smaller hands forming a ring of bright, red marks beneath the images. You step back to see the mural, a rough yet vivid chronicle of the hunt now etched into nature's own wall. It feels less like graffiti and more like a promise that your story will remain even. When the voices of the hunters fade, as the group stands in reverent silence, a sudden gust of wind sweeps up from the gorge, rattling loose pebbles that clatter down the slope. For an instant the wind hums through cracks in the rock, sounding eerily like a low drum beat. Everyone glances at one another, shivering in shared recognition of the echo of that fateful night. On the walk back, the adolescents chatter about returning when they're older to add more symbols, perhaps of future hunts, or of the hyenas whose eerie cries aided the drive. Your friend jokes that if every beast you defeat earns a mark on the wall, soon there will be no blank stone left. The group laughs, their voices carrying lightheartedly across the grassland. By midday, you're back at camp, where the others have continued working the anteater's spoils. The smell of smoked meat is stronger now. Most of it has turned dark and leathery, ready to be stored. Women are sewing hide strips together using needles carved from slender ribs, stitching with sinew that glints faintly like silver thread in the sunlight. The elder gathers the clan once again under the acacia tree for a council on how to use the new tools. Bone awls will help pierce hides for making sturdier shelter walls before the next rainy season. Claw-tipped scrapers will speed up the process of cleaning future game. Even the sinews, saved from the beast's limbs, will serve as bowstrings for small hunting darts. You listen quietly, realizing that the anteater's legacy will linger in the clan's daily life long after the meat is eaten. Its body has become shelter, food, tools, a transformation of threat into resource. After the meeting, your friend invites you to walk to the marsh edge where the cool breeze drifts over the shallows. Dragonflies dart in iridescent flashes of blue and green above the water. You squat by the bank, rinsing your hands to wash off the last stains of ochre and grease. For a moment, you sit in silence, listening to the soft hiss of wind through reeds and the distant calls of water birds. The land feels peaceful again, as if exhaling after weeks of tension. Your friend remarks softly that the unity of the hunt, the drums, the chanting, the wall of torches, might be more powerful than the spears themselves. He wonders aloud if that is what makes humans different, the ability to act as one mind. You nod, thinking of the younger hunters who kept formation despite fear, of the women who fed the flames, of the children who waited quietly in camp. Historians still debate whether the success of early Homo came from sharper tools or from cooperation. Sitting here amid the spoils of teamwork, you're convinced it's the latter, though sharp tools certainly help. Later that afternoon, the clan begins preparing for a small feast to mark the hunt's conclusion. Tubers are dug up and roasted on embers. Strips of anteater meat are simmered in a clay pot with wild herbs and a splash of the marrow broth left from the previous day. The seed-scattering woman even adds a few figs saved from the bait baskets, saying their sweetness honors the spirit of the hunt. As dusk descends, the campfire circle fills with warm aromas, earthy tubers, smoky meat, the honeyed tang of softened figs. The flames crackle cheerfully, throwing sparks that rise into the darkening sky where the first stars begin to appear. The elder raises a carved bone spoon like a scepter before distributing the stew, a symbolic gesture of sharing wealth. Everyone eats together, hunters licking grease from their fingers, children giggling at bits of fig they fish from the broth, elders chewing slowly in contemplative silence. After the meal, stories flow as easily as the smoky breeze. Adolescents exaggerate their roles in the chase. The younger children act out the scene of torches hissing in the rain, one swaying comically on hind legs to mimic the anteater before toppling into the sand. Laughter ripples around the circle, mixing with the soft drone of night insects. Your friend begins humming the too short one long chant again, slower this time, almost as a lullaby. Soon others join in, their humming weaving with the crackle of the fire until the entire camp seems to breathe to the same rhythm. Above, the Milky Way unveils itself in the clear night sky, stretching like a river of silver dust across the darkness. You lean back on your hide mat, belly warm from stew, feeling a contentment as rare as it is deep. As the chant fades and voices fall silent, the elder places the carved spoon beside the rib and clawed trophies near the fire, a quiet sign that all parts of the beast, even in ceremony, have been given purpose. You close your eyes to the sound of embers sighing, insects chirping, and the occasional distant call of a marsh bird. The night air is cool, but gentle, and the faint fig smoke aroma lingers in your hair. The threat that once prowled your dreams has now become nourishment, tools, and stories. The clan sleeps under a peaceful sky, guarded by their own unity and the quiet memory of a hard-won victory. The dawn that greets you on the second day of peace feels softer, as if the savannah itself senses the clan's relief. A pale mist drapes the low grasses, glowing gold where the early sun spears through in long beams. Birdsong returns in scattered bursts, reed warblers trilling from the marsh, guinea fowl clucking in the distant brush. You sit up from your hide mat and feel a stiffness in your arms, not from fear this time but from work well done. Around you, hunters stretch sore shoulders and rub rope-burned palms, grinning at one another with the unspoken pride of survivors. The air smells faintly of smoked meat and drying hides, a scent that now carries reassurance instead of dread. Breakfast is unhurried. Strips of chewy dried meat softened in warm marrow broth, shared around the central fire while the younger children giggle and play with leftover rib bones as toy horns. The seed-scattering woman sprinkles a few fig leaves into the flames, sending up a sweet smoke that curls lazily into the morning air. Today, the elder plans something different, a journey to a nearby hilltop, overlooking both the camp and the ravine. He wants the clan to create a stone marker there, a place of memory visible from afar. You and your friend volunteer again, curious to see the land from that higher vantage point. After the meal, a group of a dozen sets out carrying baskets to gather small stones. The hill lies beyond the acacia grove, a low rise crowned with scattered boulders. As you climb the gentle slope, you notice the change in wind, cooler and stronger here, carrying with it the faint roar of the gorge river, even at this distance. From the top, the view opens in every direction, grasslands rolling in green-gold waves, the silver thread of the marsh winding like a lazy snake, and far to the west, the shadowed cut of the ravine, where last night's drama unfolded. The cliff's dark scar looks small from here, almost peaceful, belying the danger it held. The elder surveys the site and points to a flat stretch of bare soil between two sun-bleached boulders. Here, he signals, they will build the cairn. Everyone fans out across the hillside, collecting fist-sized stones, smooth river pebbles, jagged bits of shale, even fragments of old termite mounds, hardened to brick-like lumps. You and your friend carry armfuls back and begin stacking them in a circular base. The adolescents compete playfully over who can find the most unusual shapes. One boy proudly brings a chunk of quartz that sparkles in the sunlight. The elder nods approvingly and sets it near the cairn's peak. By midday, the pile has grown waist-high, its shape narrowing toward the top like an inverted funnel. The seed-scattering woman lays a ring of fig leaves around its base, their green bright against the dusty stones. Historians still argue whether such cairns began as burial markers or as landmarks of victory. Watching the clan work side by side, you sense it's both a guidepost for travelers and a memory for descendants. A gusty breeze sweeps across the hill, bending the grasses below into rippling waves. The elder uses the largest anteater rib, now polished smooth, as a makeshift staff to tamp down loose stones. Its curve gleams ivory pale against the cairn's gray. Once the marker stands chest high and stable, the elder beckons everyone to circle it. With gestures and a few guttural syllables, he recounts the essentials of the hunt, the lure of figs, the drums that echoed thunder, the wall of torches under rain, the final slip at the cliff. His hands mime the anteater's slow retreat, the clan's united advance. The adolescents mimic the drum beats by patting their palms on their chests, smiling proudly at the story's end. Each person places one final stone on the cairn's peak, sealing the memory into the mound. You place a reddish rock, smoothed by the marsh's current, leaving it balanced like a crown. Standing back, you feel an unexpected swell of calm pride. From this hill, the cairn looks modest, but you imagine travelers spotting it from the distant grasslands and knowing some tale lies behind its careful shape. The elder concludes by pressing the anteater's smallest claw into a crack between stones near the cairn's base, a subtle token hidden in plain sight, visible only to those who come close. The group lingers to admire the marker against the open sky. From here you can see the clouds piling white on the far horizon, their shadows crawling across the plains. A lone eagle circles high above, its cry sharp and distant. On the walk back, the mood is buoyant. The adolescents race each other downhill with reckless glee, kicking up tufts of dry grass. Your friend remarks that the cairn may outlast even your camp, a thought that makes you strangely hopeful. By afternoon, the clan resumes routine tasks, checking drying racks, turning meat strips, scraping the last of the hide. Children chase grasshoppers near the marsh edge, their laughter mixing with the gentle lap of water against reeds. You join your friend in fashioning a simple sheath from a strip of hide for the sharpened chin-bone tool you carved yesterday. It fits snugly, a sign that the new resources will serve well in hunts to come. as the sun dips lower, casting the savanna in a copper glow. The elder calls for another communal meal, this one meant not as a feast, but as a quiet thanksgiving. A stew of tubers, wild greens, and the final fresh cut of anteater meat simmers in the clay pot, its aroma wafting over the camp. When everyone gathers around the fire, the elder again points his staff toward the ribbon claw trophies planted beside the flames, then toward the hill cairn, now visible in silhouette against the western horizon. His meaning is clear. Memory lives both here at the fire and out there in the stones. Your friend leans close, whispering that one day the cairn's story will travel farther than the hunt itself, retold with embellishments to impress future clans. You chuckle at the thought, a tale growing taller than the stones. After supper, as dusk deepens into night, a chorus of frogs begins at the marsh. Fireflies spark above the reeds like floating embers. The air cools and carries the mixed scents of damp grass, smoke, and stew. The elder starts a soft chant, not the driving rhythm of the hunt, but a melodic hum, rising and falling gently like breathing. Gradually, voices join in, weaving a low harmony that seems to soothe even the restless children into stillness. Above, the stars appear in clusters, one by one, until the whole sky blooms with silver light. The Milky Way arches in a bright swath overhead, reflected faintly in the marsh's calm pools. You stretch out on your hide mat near the warmth of the embers, feeling muscles loosen and thoughts drift. The sight of the cairn's silhouette on the hill comforts you. It feels like a watchful guardian overlooking both the camp and the gorge. In that quiet moment, you realize the danger that once dominated your every thought has faded into memory, solidified now in tools, food, stories, and the cairn itself. The night holds no menace, only the calm of shared effort and lasting unity. You close your eyes to the crackle of the dying fire, the cool whisper of the breeze, and the distant lap of marsh water. Sleep comes easily, soft as the fig leaf smoke that lingers over camp. The final morning of this long ordeal rises under a soft silver haze. A ground mist clings to hollows between tufts of grass, while the early light spreads like diluted honey across the savanna. You wake to the muffled calls of cranes circling the marsh, their wings casting fleeting shadows over the drying racks of meat. The air smells clean, wood smoke faded to a faint ember scent, hides crisping on their frames, a whisper of fig leaves carried on the breeze. The claw and rib trophies beside the fire now stand like familiar friends rather than grim relics. Breakfast is quiet but cheerful, strips of smoked meat dipped in marrow paste, passed from hand to hand. Children gnaw the dried pieces like treats, their chatter free of the old unease that once haunted me. The elder chews slowly, gazing toward the western hill, where the cairn rises, half veiled by lingering morning mist after the meal. A small group including you, your friend, and 2 adolescents walks out to inspect a stone marker in daylight. The path is damp beneath your soles, but springy with new grass. Sunlight pierces the mist as you climb, throwing beams across the savanna like golden spears. At the hilltop, the cairn looks sturdy and proud against the sky. The fig leaves around its base have wilted to a darker green, and dew sparkles on the quartz stone near the peak. The hidden claw wedged in a crevice glints faintly when touched by a stray sunbeam. Your friend crouches to adjust a few loose stones, pressing them tighter into the mound. One adolescent adds a flat pebble he picked up along the path, declaring it a stone of safe return. The others follow suit, each contributing a pebble with whispered hopes for future hunts. Standing there, you scan the horizon, the dark line of the ravine, the winding marsh, the acacia-dotted plain, glowing under the rising sun. From this vantage, the land seems calmer, its dangers momentarily distant. Back at camp, the day's work unfolds at a slower pace. The last racks of meat are turned for even drying. Sinew cords are plaited into bowstrings and lashings. Hides are trimmed to line the interiors of reed shelters. The seed-scattering woman prepares small bundles of fig leaf-scented powder to keep with the stored meat. Believing it wards off spoilage, by midday, the clan gathers under the acacia tree once more. The elder lifts his staff and gestures in a sweeping circle, an unspoken reminder of the journey they've made from fear to triumph. In a short address of gruff syllables and animated hands, he names each group's contribution: the hunter's stamina, the women's baiting skill, the adolescent's drumming courage, the hyena's unintended help, and even the cliff that served as the final weapon. The ceremony ends with everyone touching the planted claw beside the fire, each in turn pressing a finger to it as a sign of shared guardianship over their story. The afternoon passes in peaceful labor. Children chase bright butterflies near the marsh edge. Hunters test their repaired spears by tossing them at termite mounds. Women sew hide strips into larger mats for trading with a neighboring group expected to pass through in a few weeks. You and your friend take a walk to the river shallows. Downstream of the gorge, the water runs cool and green under dappled shadows of leaning trees. You rinse your hands, still faintly marked by ochre and smoke, letting the current tug gently at your fingers. The breeze off the water carries the distant echo of frogs, and for a while the two of you stand in companionable silence, grateful for the rare sense of calm as the sun tilts westward. You return to camp to find the elder preparing for a final evening gathering. A low platform of flat stones has been arranged near the fire, with the claw and rib trophies leaning like guardians on either side. In the center sits a bowl of marrow fig paste, a symbolic offering to the memory of the fallen beast and to the land that provided it. At sunset, the sky blooms with streaks of orange and rose fading into violet. The clan circles the fire. The elder speaks a few spare words, gestures more than speech, about endurance, unity, and the lessons learned in the hunt. Then he passes the marrow fig bowl around so that each person can taste a fingerful. Your turn comes. The paste is earthy sweet on your tongue, a reminder of both hardship and ingenuity. You glance at your friend, who raises an eyebrow as if to say, "Who knew figs could win battles?" You both stifle a quiet laugh. Night descends gently. Stars kindle above one by one until the sky is crowded with shimmering lights. The Milky Way spills in a luminous arc over the dark land, mirrored by the faint silver thread of the distant river. A hush falls over the camp as the elder leads a soft humming chant. It starts as a low drone, then rises and falls in slow waves like the breathing of the earth itself. The sound soothes even the youngest children, who lean sleepily against their mother's shoulders. You lie back on a hide mat close to the fire's fading glow. The claw and rib cast tall, gentle silhouettes against the amber light. The breeze is cool, but not harsh, carrying with it the mingled scents of smoke, leather, and distant fig leaves. Your eyelids grow heavy as you listen to the crackle of embers and the soft rhythm of the chant. The story of the great Anteater, once a nightmare stalking your dreams, has now become part of the clan's lore, woven into song, tools, food, and memory. Somewhere beyond the camp, a lone hyena calls, not in laughter, but in a slow rising howl that drifts across the plain, then fades. It feels less like a threat than a farewell. You close your eyes, letting the sounds of night frogs, wind through reeds, ember sighs blend into a single lullaby. The fire's last embers settle into a soft red glow. They're crackled gentler now, almost like whispers shared between old friends. The night air moves in slow, cool breaths across the grass, stirring the drying hides so they sway with a faint rustle. Overhead, the Milky Way stretches unbroken from horizon to horizon, a pale river flowing above the sleeping land. Imagine yourself lying back beneath that sky, the earth still faintly warm from the day's sun, the scent of smoked meat and fig leaves drifting like a quiet memory. The danger that once prowled these plains has faded into the rhythm of distant water below the cliff. You let your breathing slow to match the hum of the clan's last evening chant, long, even notes that rise and fall like waves against a calm shore. With every exhale, tension seeps away, the tightness in your shoulders, the pulse that raced through nights of fire and drums, the lingering echo of claws scraping stone. The breeze brushes your cheek, cool and dry, carrying the faint sweetness of crushed figs and the earthy perfume of damp grass. Somewhere far off, a marsh bird calls, its notes soft and hollow like a wooden flute, then quiet again. Your eyes grow heavy as you picture the cairn on the hill, stones stacked in steady silence beneath the starlight, guarding the memory of a battle fought and won. The claw and ribs stand beside the fire as calm witnesses to your perseverance. The land itself seems to sigh in contentment. Sleep settles over you slowly, wrapping you in the warmth of the hide cape, lulling you deeper with the hush of insects and the occasional soft pop of a cooling ember. End of script. Sweet dreams.